It is 5:45, so I will call to order the March 7th, 2024 regular meeting of the Hendersonville City Council. We begin our meetings with a silent invocation for people to pray or meditate as they choose, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would rise, please. You'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We have public comment time. We have 2 people signed up for general public comment this evening. Is there anyone online seeking recognition for general public comment?
No, Madam Mayor.
No, Madam Mayor.
No. Okay. All right. In that case, we can have give each of these 2 about 5 minutes if they need that much. Hopefully less, but we'll give you a little more. And if you would come, give your name and address for the clerk's record, please. Brenda Raymer.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Raymer. My current address is 511 North Main Street, Hendersonville, while I am watching on maternity watch. My home address is 1217 Forest Hill Drive, Hendersonville. I'm here to say thank you. Thank you to this wonderful city. Thank you, already. Thank the chief and all the support. I'm sure you all, I don't have to tell you, I'm actually Charlotte's stepmom, mom. Charlotte the Ray has made international news, and I appreciate all the support that this community has given to her and to us. And hopefully all of this spark, we have drawn people in from so many places, and I'm hoping that it helps increase the revenue for the county, the city, and Main Street in general. I know I've talked to several businesses on Main Street, and they've been very excited with having such a great early spring. I kind of wanted to give you an update on where we are. I hope you all know that Charlotte does have her own consulting firm working for her, no lie, because I don't know how I would have handled this. We have done news responding via news stations in Brazil, Austria, Poland, New Zealand, France, Spain, the Netherlands, the United Emirates, Germany, Australia, Ireland, of course the USA, Canada, the UK, Colombia, Argentina, and India. Okay? We have brought in 378,000 Instagram followers who are coming down and spending money in our community. 64% of those are from the United States, 7% from Brazil. I'm learning a new language through all of this because I have to keep hitting translate when they send me messages. 6.5% from the UK, 5% from Canada, 3.5% from Australia, and then the rest from all over. TikTok, I'm not a social media person, but I know a lot of people like these numbers. TikTok, we have 600,000 followers and 2.3 million likes. Facebook, we have 41,000 followers and 26,000 likes. We are averaging being open from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and 12:30 to 4 o'clock on Saturdays, 180 people a day coming in. So I've already talked to John, I've talked to Jeff, talked to Chief and Jamie Carpenter, just to make sure that we're not clogging anything up on Main Street, but everybody has been very receptive, of having such an influx of people downtown. We have 45 requests from high schools in the United States to do presentations on this phenomenon. If you're not familiar, the phenomenon is like crazy. It's called parthenogenesis, where Charlotte basically is creating a clone of herself. Okay? We've done 2 late night shows, which I'm sure most people have seen. We didn't do them, they did them about us. We've done dozens of newspapers, magazines, the social media reboots. We were even in Forbes magazine the other week, of all places, and Scientific America. We've done CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, Nat Geo, among some. And I had a group of teachers last weekend that came down from New York City to meet her and then talk to me about how can we get a curriculum to put into their schools on basic biology. And that's one of the things that we have been working on already, is a curriculum so that this can share. I appreciate the fact that people let us have this crazy dream. And never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that it would have gone like it did when we invited WLOS and people to come down and say, hey, we're going to announce this pregnancy. And holy cow, it's been phenomenal. So I hope it's been good for the city. We are very proud of what we have to offer. We are doing things that other aquariums around the world are not doing. And we are writing a book. This town and everyone that comes to visit at the aquarium are helping write science history. This is the first and only known occurrence of parthenogenesis happening in a California round ray in captivity. We are working with the Field Museum in Chicago. They did all of our shark partho studies, and they already have the baseline for the genotyping for this once she gives birth. So we will be sending our stuff to the Chicago Field Museum and working with the Fitzer lab there. And they're very excited about it. We're very excited to have it. So Kinsley and I will send the DNA samples off, but our plan is to be there at the end of the week when they hit the button that says, these are the results. I'm like, we got to be there. We just have to be there, just to see what it's all about. But this has been an absolutely phenomenal thing. So thank you. Thank you all for your support. Very touched by how much this community has rallied around us. So thank you.
Well, there are so many bad things going on in the world. Nice to have a positive, fun thing happening, especially in our town.
It is. We thought about it and we thought, COVID ripped everybody apart a few years ago. And this little stingray's brought everybody back together. It's given people a purpose to look for something happy. So we are happy to be part of that and honored that people are letting us share it. So thank you. And now I have to go back to maternity watch.
Next is Michael McDaniel.
Hi, Michael McDaniel, 825 Spartanburg Way. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm the new regional director for the Blood Connection. We are the community's blood bank, and I first want to thank the city. We've hosted over 20 blood drives with the city of Hendersonville, so thank you for your support. In fact, Tammy Ledford is the chairperson for those blood drives. She sends that communication out to all the employees, and we really appreciate it. Something that you may not have heard from us before is the state of the blood supply. So I wanted to provide that. The state of our blood supply is strong, thanks to those donations through the city. Surgeries are increasing. That is typical this time of year before summer. So blood usage will go up. So you may see us asking for more blood drives. I want to remind everybody where our center is located, which is 825 Spartanburg Way, 7 to 7 Monday through Friday, and then 7 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. To share a few facts about blood donation, every 2 seconds, someone in the United States needs blood. That is a lot. In fact, 1 in 7 people walking into a hospital are going to need it. And the really scary statistic is that 1 in 3 men and 1 in 2 women in the United States will develop cancer in their lifetime. If they're going to fight cancer, they will undoubtedly need blood product to do it. So for those of you that may have been touched by that or know people that are touched by that, they need blood product to beat cancer. So thank you to the city. I do want to pose a little challenge. Hopefully we can host some blood drives with the police and fire departments. I would like to see a friendly competition. That's usually fun. And if you have any questions about blood donation, feel free to stop by. I plan to be in Hendersonville quite a bit, and we are expanding our operations. We're currently serving over 120 hospitals in 4 states and are getting inquiries to serve even more, including 3 major systems in Charlotte. So you will see more of us about, and we are also adding 10 new buses to this region. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Welcome to the community.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's the public comment. Next, consideration of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have added to or removed from the agenda this evening? Or a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I move that the city council approve the agenda as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. We have that agenda. And next is the consent agenda. Isn't nearly as long as usual, but that's okay. Still several votes we don't have to take separately. Is there anything on the consent agenda that you would like to have moved to the regular agenda so it can be discussed? Or if not, a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I move that City Council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. And we have that taken care of. And we have quite a few presentations this evening. First one is a proclamation for We Are Hope Week. I think we have several people coming up to receive this. You know, and you're right in the middle. Why don't you give the name so we know who you are?
I'm Caitlin.
From
I go to Rugby Middle School.
okay.
My name's Bella and I go to Hendersonville High School.
All right. So this is a proclamation honoring the observance of We Are Hope Week in Henderson County Public Schools, middle and high school. Whereas substance and alcohol abuse negatively affects many areas of the brain, the liver, the heart, and other body parts, and can cause adverse behavior, psychological, and social consequences. And whereas there were more than 63,600 drug overdose deaths in the United States in 2016, and the drug overdose death rate has more than tripled from 1999 to 2016. And whereas substance and alcohol abuse continues to occur among children and youth in our society. In 2017, 12.1% of high school students in North Carolina smoked cigarettes. 44.1% used an electronic vape product. 26.5% drank alcohol. 36.5% used marijuana. 5.3% used cocaine. And 15% took prescription drugs without a doctor's prescription, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's 2017 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance. And whereas student leaders in Henderson County Public Schools, 6 high schools and 4 middle schools, have joined with local Henderson County Coalition Hope RX in educating their peers on alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and prescription drug use and abuse. And whereas students at Apple Valley Middle, Flat Rock Middle, Hendersonville Middle, Rugby Middle, East Henderson High, Innovative High School, Henderson County Career Academy, Mountain Community School, Hendersonville High, North Henderson High, and West Henderson High are pledging to be and remain substance-free. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Hendersonville City Council members that March 11th to March 15th, 2024, be observed in Henderson County Public Schools, middle and high schools, as We Are Hope Substance Abuse Awareness Week. I will give this to you guys. You can take it. Either of you want to say something? Okay. She needs a picture. Thank you for coming in. Right. Next, we have a presentation from the Veteran Service Organizations, Andrew Clark and Bob Scruff.
These guys will probably tell you I don't need a microphone, but we'll, shall we say, keep up the habit. No, we wanted to do a presentation tonight because, as you know, most of yours is done where people can either C-SPAN or be here to see what goes on. A lot of what we do is behind the scenes. Jeff knows firsthand, going back to when he started Honor Air, that we're looking not only for what helps the veterans, but in turn, veterans are the family that makes up this county and other counties. And we're looking, what's good for one is usually good for all. And over the years, you folks have been generous. A lot of times it's just time. We have questions, don't know who. Usually if we can come, you'll direct us as to who. But we represent, in this case, Andrew Clark and I are officers in both the American Legion, DAV. David is in the DAV. On this plaque, we just list the organization's name. Why? The DAV represents 4 counties. We're talking roughly about 6,000 veterans. The American Legion, we have members from Transylvania County as well as Buncombe, come out of Polk County. So it's true with most of the organizations. And we also, for a lot of travelers, that they're member of veterans organizations, they know they can come in and they can meet with us. But this, some people like to read what's on the plaque. I prefer to let you know that it's heartfelt. We appreciate, even though you might not directly say, this is what we're doing for the veterans, but by your actions and deeds, you have said that. And Jeff's been around us enough and knows that this is the thing. We'll come over and say, hey, we appreciate this, we appreciate that. So we're not here to ask for anything other than your time to let you know that's the idea behind this plaque. And if you want to hang it in the closet, that will be your privilege to do. But we just wanted a chance for the public to know that we do work together. Perfect example, I used to with the fire department, with the building they were in, when we were going to do flag retirements, that I would always stop and let them know, hey, we're going to do, you guys are welcome to stop and see how we do it. Now we do it outside. Jeff managed to get one of the few last post office drop boxes, and I'm the individual that does flag retirement. So when you guys bring down, no, it is proper procedure that's done. So it's, we represent different parties, different whatever you want to say, but there's one thing for sure. If it's good for the county, we're all going to be doing it. So this is just that reminder to you that if we can help, you holler at us. But by the same token, we're saying thank you and appreciate it. And I'll let Mr. Suit here present to the mayor the plaque. And if anybody wants to do photos.
Just so you know, too, every single pre-flight before we take the trips with Honor Air, Honor Flight, every single pre-flight goes right out of here. Mr. Conant helps us set it up, and it's still going.
Thank you for this recognition. There's no question that we support our veterans, do whatever we can to help out.
It's an amazing city. We definitely appreciate that as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. YMCA, we're going to have a presentation. Katrina McGuire is the executive director.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. My Chief Operating Officer is here with us, Tim Blenko, B-L-E-N-C-O. I'm Katrina McGuire, and I have a new hat I presented to you before. I am the Executive Director here at the Hendersonville YMCA, and I really enjoy my work. The YMCA here has been an integral part of this community for decades, and we want to continue to see it grow and flourish because it serves every age group. We have a gentleman who reached 100 years old, and he says he's been working out at the YMCA, not this one in particular, since he was 9 years old. So the YMCA does well, it keeps you going strong, and we serve our families and our youngsters. And so at this juncture, the YMCA is looking for, in our appropriations request, some assistance in a feasibility study, as we are trying to determine whether it is time that we grow our building as we are growing in our community. I'm going to give it over to Tim Blenko here to go through a presentation that we've prepared for your view so that it can help you give some context for our request.
Thank you, Katrina. And again, my name is Tim Blenko, the Chief Operating Officer for the for the YMCA. Just a little bit of backstory to start with. It was probably about 5 or 6 months ago. I was invited to have lunch with John Connett and John Mitchell and a couple other community leaders, where they said a phrase that has etched in my brain ever since, is that Hendersonville needs a YMCA befitting its community, and it's true. It is so true. Our board, coming out of the pandemic, created a new strategic plan, and in it, we specifically called out that we needed a new Y in both downtown Asheville and in Hendersonville. So this is something that our board has made a commitment to. And in pursuit of that commitment, we had an opportunity about 6 weeks ago to have lunch with former Senator Apodaca, and just said, hey, look, is it possible for us to get a state appropriation to potentially kickstart what would be a capital campaign here? Essentially, he said, look, it's now you get a pretty good shot. So we have sat down with Representatives Johnson, Representative Balcom. We're in conversations with Senator Moffitt to make that request, so that we have a little bit of momentum heading into things. So as that was moving underway, we knew that we needed to make best use of our property. So the Y is sitting on about 7.25 acres right now. You can see up here on the slides a little bit of our membership size. We've got roughly 6,000 members of the Hendersonville Y. We know that we do a lot of great programs in the community, and we're very proud of that work, and we just want to do a better job, again, because the community deserves a better Y. Our facility was originally built in 1965, and it shows. Right now, I kind of feel like I'm living in a house that, the whole neighborhood's been fixed up except for us, and we realize that, and we want to do better. So part of what we've done is we engaged a company called Grow Development to come out to assess our building, to look at our land, to look at our markets, to figure out, hey, are we overperforming? Are we underperforming? Are we in the right location? If some of you guys will remember the YMCA at Mission Party Health Campus, that Y, the same company told us a long time ago was built 6 miles away from success. And we kind of knew we were going to have some challenges there, but we thought the potential hospital partnership could overcome that. What we found out here is that we are in the right spots. Our dirt is good dirt. We are in a great market, and as you guys well know, Hendersonville is growing. Henderson County is growing, and this just kind of reiterated that we're in a great market. In terms of where our members come from today, that is a heat map. Every single one of those dots is a unit. It's not a person. So one of those dots could be like my family of 5 people. So we know that we have really strong market penetration right now. Right now, that the white blob is about a 21-minute drive time to our building. And in that 21-minute drive time right now, we have about 9.2% of the households are active Y members. In a proper building, and that's what this next slide shows, is that they're assuming, based on our market performance, that we could serve 15.2% of the households in that same market with a better facility. Right now, we are in 31,500 square feet. We need at least 45,000 square feet for the members we have today and to be able to provide the community the programs that it needs. So this is kind of the report card coming out of that. Again, our market performance, we are doing great. We could do better. The location, again, scores an A. The site, we have good dirt. We can better leverage that dirt. The building, it's generous to give us a C. And we just for context as well, our board about 2 weeks ago had a conversation and said, how much longer do we have in our building? And I was honest, I was like, about 2021 was probably the last good year in that building. And we are to the point now where if we have another plumbing issue, we just might not have good enough pipes to connect new to. So it's really getting down to the core of the building is where some of our challenges are. And then, why we have a B plus in the bottom is we are going to endeavor upon a capital campaign probably bigger than has been done in recent Hendersonville history. So we are going to try to, and we'll get there in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So a request for everybody here watching this is these are preliminary, nothing is set in stone. These are concepts of how we could better leverage the 7.25 acres we have to not only address our needs, but the needs of the greater community. One thing I'll point out is we have essentially 3 options. It's 1A and 1B, both using the core of our facility. The most expensive things to build in a Y is the pool and the basketball gym. So in 1A and 1B, we kind of keep those core, and then we mess with everything else. And option 2 is vastly different. In all 3 of these options, I remember 7 years ago, a request from the city to, could we do something around, could we help you guys do something with Oak? So we want to make sure that we're trying to accommodate reconfiguration of that intersection, better, pedestrian friendly in all 3 of those scenarios. But we see here in 1A, we do an aquatics expansion. I'd like to tell the story. Since the merger, about 2 weeks after we merged with the Hendersonville Y when it was independent, the ceiling came into the pool. It fell. So that was a very vivid memory. So we would get a new ceiling there, but also make sure that we're expanding our aquatics footprint. Since the merger, we've invested millions of dollars into that facility. It's all in the 1-story part, the vast majority of it. And each of these options, those are all gone. So we would rip down the 1-story, so where our fitness center is, where the front desk is, all of that would come down, and we would build a new 2-story building up front and bring parking a little bit closer to the front door. We've had a lot of conversations with Pardee Hospital about possibly incorporating a physical therapy component, possibly an outpatient surgery component. That would be reflected in the orange box, kind of to the right. Try to put that into the room, and then where our tennis courts are now, theoretically could be leveraged. That could be something where Pardee, I know, wants a medical office building and they're landlocked. They can't grow. So could we do that there? And then the back 2 acres right now that we repurchased after the merger, that's available for potentially workforce housing. Some other nonprofits I know are looking to relocate their campus, so potentially housing a good partner in the back 2 acres there. So that's option 1A. Option 1B is a lot more new Y. So we still do the components of 1A. But where the partner space is now would be where the new basketball gym goes. So in this scenario, we would theoretically move our fitness center to where the basketball gym is now, and then build a new regulation basketball court there. Still able to leverage the back and the tennis courts for partner space. So it's just more new Y in this scenario. And option 2 is the one that I get really excited about. Unfortunately, it's also a lot more expensive. So we'll see where we can go. But in this option, we have the least amount of disruption to our day-to-day services right now, both in option 1A and in 1B. It's going to be a nightmare at the Y for about 1.5 years while we're trying to do those things. So this would allow us to build a brand new state-of-the-art facility with a brand new pool, brand new basketball gym, and we get the road frontage. Because right now we are so far back, we can't make that building look sexy as hard as we try. It's too old. But this is the Y, I think, befitting of the community. This is the vision that we're hoping to get to. And then it would also allow us to to have that separate, around 30,000 square foot building is what Pardee has requested for their medical office. Potentially bringing in, getting Wingate on our side of the street and giving them space to expand the cancer center. So there's a lot of harmony that we could create in kind of the human service ecosystem right there in that part of Hendersonville. So excited about that. And and that's kind of the next step. So what we know now is that we've got some very compelling options to work from. And you can see the big blue middle down there is right now the early conceptual price tags. So we're working with Vinoy right now to validate these numbers. So 1A comes in at about 10.5, a little bit north of 10.5. Option 1B, just round up to 14.5. And then option 2, about 25.5. So looking at a potential capital stack, and again, if we're fortunate enough to get a state appropriation, we formally requested 5. That would be a $5 million head start. And then what we're going to do next, and just a little heads up, we've contracted with a group called Donor by Design to do a capital campaign feasibility study. So we know that there's a history of raising about $6 million, is give or take, is what Pardee was able to raise for the cancer center. In order to get to option 2, we're going to need to raise $10 million from the community. So if we can raise 10, get 5 from a state appropriation theoretically, we've got a couple million that we could put in. We can see it, and then if we're looking at the land leases and how we can leverage our property, it's feasible that we can get to $25 million, $30 million with a little bit of debt that would be a sustainable amount of debt. So that's kind of what we're looking for. But the next step is the capital campaign feasibility study. And that is doing a lot of interviews with a lot of folks, looking at the potential, the interest, is there excitement about a project like this, and can we get to it? And if so, how much money could we raise? So that's what we're going to be doing in April and May, and then hopefully be able to know which one of these we're going to be aiming at, and we'll get to work. So what we have asked is for the municipalities of Henderson County to be a part of funding this due diligence. So this due diligence is just under $50,000. So we've asked Laurel Park, the city of Hendersonville, and Henderson County to share in that expense with us as we try to get some momentum heading into what will hopefully be a very successful capital campaign. So it's a lot of talking. But yeah, any questions?
Questions at this point? Guess not.
Yeah, and again, just very preliminary and very early, so we got a lot of work to do before we're opening that new Y. But we're excited, and thank you guys for the time.
Tim, I understand it's opening in 2026. Is that what I heard?
January 1st, John.
That's what I heard, right?
January 1st.
Just kidding. And I'm sure council will take your request up as part of their special appropriation process the first Friday in May.
Outstanding. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for coming. All right. Next, we have an employee recognition. Deanna Van Wyck, Payroll and Benefits Officer, for obtaining the International Public Management Association Human Resources Certified Professional Certification. Holy smokes. Put that on your name tag, huh?
Yeah. So this is Deanna Van Wyk. She's the city's payroll and benefits officer. So be nice to her. So, yeah. So I'd like to recognize Deanna for passing the exam and obtaining the IPMA HRCP certification. It's not an easy exam. And the IPMA HR strives to encourage excellence in the public sector HR and promote continuous learning. So I appreciate Deanna and her commitment to the human resources profession and to the city of Hendersonville. So here's
Right. Congratulations for all that hard work. And thank you for being willing to go above and beyond. All right. Next, we have the 2024 City Academy, who is doing, oh, Luann is there. She was way back in the corner.
Mayor, City Council. I honestly thought John was going to talk, but he asked me to, so that's good. This was our 6th year that we did the City Academy. We offer this to all of our employees. If they would like to come in, learn more about the city, there are 6 sessions. They're in the evening. This is their own time, but they're willing to come out and listen to John talk about how government works across the state, listen to Brian talk about the budget. Yeah, and in this group, I have to say of all of them, we didn't lose anybody. So usually some people start and they don't make it all the way through the 6 sessions, but this time we had 12 people, and all of them made it to the end, and I really appreciate it. It was a good group. We had, I think, let's see, finance, customer service, engineering, water, public works, police, fire, and the downtown. So we had all those departments. It's where they could meet other employees as well that they don't see all the time. We had an employee that had been with the city for 19 years, and we've had an employee that had been with the city for 2 months. So it was a wide variety of people, and which I think makes it a lot more fun. So should I just call everybody up? And is that okay? Allison Sikowski, she's with Finance and Customer Service. Savannah Tankersley, Finance Customer Service. Lisa Brown, Finance Customer Service. Lucas Stewart, Water and Sewer. Travis Penland, Engineering. Richard Shook, Engineering. Selena Holbrook with Police. David Corey with Fire. And Jody Martin. Let's see. We also had Jody Martin, Terry Jacobs, Ben Alamong, and Brittany Watson. So those are our graduates this year.
Thank you all. And thanks to Luann and HR and all the people who were presenters. We do appreciate everything you all do. Yeah. Okay. And the last is Certificate of Completion of International Association of Chiefs of Police Trust Building Campaign Pledge. Chief Myhand?
I think we left a certificate up here, but. Madam Mayor and Council, my name is Blair Myhand, the Chief of Police. I wanted to let you know tonight that we as the department completed the trust building campaign, and I want to tell you a little bit about what that is. So a couple years ago, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, which is the largest and most influential association for police leaders in the nation, probably in the world, decided that they would create a strategic plan and one initiative. It's an association like any other where there's a new president elected from the body every year, and they would come in with their own personal agenda, and it changed from year to year. So they decided that they would come up with the trust building campaign and have a multi-year initiative for law enforcement. So the trust building campaign is a pledge that we took in March of last year. So as part of our professionalization of the department, one of the things that's very important for myself and for John, when we're looking on how we're going to move the agency forward, is really adopting best practices that are around the country. That's why we're involved in accreditation, and this is just another step in that. That's why a couple months ago, I think I was before you for a resolution our resolution for bias-free policing. So we took this pledge in March of last year, and what we said by doing that is that we would adopt 25 key practices over 6 different categories that built on things like bias-free policing, use of force, recruitment, hiring, and retention of officers, which is incredibly difficult for law enforcement these days, victim services, community relations, all these things that are designed to help us build and strengthen relationships between the department and the community, to provide safe interactions with law enforcement, to increase safety in the communities, and to really reinforce wellness within our organization. And so we did that. We worked very hard over the last, over 2023 to complete this. And I'm happy to say that, I appreciate staff for really supporting this and digging into it. But I'm very excited to say that we are the first agency in the state of North Carolina to complete this pledge. And so I saw a couple of the agencies on there. One of them was my former boss, and I looked at staff. I said, I will not be second to John Litney again. So we got it done, and we received this certificate suitable for framing. So we will display this in the agency, and we have a book that we'll post on our website, a pamphlet that everybody can look at to see the exact measures and steps that we took to be able to meet all 25 of these practices. So very excited to do that. So it's just one more step in our journey of professionalization and making our agency better. So just wanted to make y'all aware of that. And again, I'm very honored that we were able to receive this, and very excited to be a leader really in the state of North Carolina. So thank y'all for hearing me out here. So.
Okay. Thank you for your leadership on that, and to the department for completing it. Right, we have several public hearings this evening. The first is an annexation public hearing for 1019 Berkeley Road.
Yes, good evening.
Mr. Manley.
We will hopefully make this quick. We do have a request for a contiguous annexation just off Asheville Highway at 1019 Berkeley Road. It's for approximately 1.28 acres. It's this property right here. There are plans for these two properties to come together for a development. And that is it. I have a motion for approval and a motion for denial, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
We will open this public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak regarding the annexation of 1019 Berkeley Road? Anyone who wishes to speak? Is there anyone online seeking recognition to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. In that case, we'll close the public hearing. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Hendersonville to extend the corporate limits of the city as a contiguous annexation, to annex that property owned by Kevin and Alexandra Fakori, identified as PIN 9569485695, finding that the standards established by North Carolina General Statute 168-31 have been satisfied, and that the annexation is in the best interest of the city.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of this annexation say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. That taken care of. Thank you. Next is another annexation, Upward Road and Old Spartanburg Road.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. So I think this may be the first time I'm going to give a longer presentation than Matt, so we need to document this day. So this is a satellite annexation on Upward Road and Old Spartanburg Road. This one's a little bit different than annexations that have been brought to you all in the past, just because you can kind of see on the petitioner side, there's really two sets of petitioners. So when the annexation process started, the Joneses owned the property. Shortly after, as you can see, the certificate of sufficiency was approved by this council. The ownership switched to the Spinks Company LLC. However, both parties agreed to the annexation beforehand. So even at the certificate of sufficiency stage, the Spinks Company did submit their annexation application showing that they were agreeable to the annexation as well once they took over. And there also was a slight change in the petition over between the certificate of sufficiency and now, and it all revolves around this little parcel back here that fronts on Bell Avenue. So as you can see, there's 6 pins involved at the certificate of sufficiency stage. So this is the annexation petition that's in front of you all tonight to be voted on. And as you can see, that Bell Avenue fronting parcel has been removed. So Matt will get into the rezoning portion of this if approved, and kind of maybe he'll give some feedback on that, the reason that parcel was removed. So it's currently only 5 parcels, and that is the current request by the Spinks Company LLC. I have a motion for approval and a motion for denial. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Any questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
Thank you. We will open this public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the annexation at Upward Road and Old Spartanburg Road? Is there anyone online seeking recognition?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there's one hand raised.
Okay. If you could have that person unmute and make their comments. Starting with the name and address, please.
Lynn, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Lynn Williams. I'm located on Chadwick Avenue. My main concern here is annexation. Boundary.
I'm not hearing.
Can you hear me? Sorry. I am concerned about the destruction of our open spaces. Traditionally, this plot of land was rural in this area, and so my concern as we annex is consideration of how we're going to maintain the historic character along this corridor. That's my concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else seeking recognition? No? Anyone else here? Okay, if not, we'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Hendersonville to annex non-contiguous property owned by the Spinks Company LLC, identified as pins 9577897580, 9577896416, 9577895289, 9577896236, and 9577896187. Finding that the standards established by North Carolina General Statute 160A-58.1 have been satisfied and that the annexation is in the best interest of the city.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the annexation at Upward Road and Old Spartanburg Road, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and that one is done. Okay, we have annexed that, and now we need to zone it.
Correct. Unfortunately, this presentation will be longer than my last one. So yes, now that that property is annexed, the city has 60 days to assign zoning to those parcels. And so that is what this presentation is about, the same exact parcels. The subject property was obviously formally in the jurisdiction of Henderson County, and those parcels have historically been zoned under the county community commercial zoning. They are now located inside the city's corporate limits in an area where satellite parcels have been annexed into the city with zoning designations, primarily CHMU, commercial highway mixed use, but also C3 highway business. The properties within these districts are developed with fast food restaurant chains and lodging. There is a significant amount of vacant property as well as commercial, residential, agricultural, and institutional uses in proximity of the subject property. The county zoning in this area is primarily the community commercial, the CC zoning district along Upward Road, and then R1, residential 1, is further set back from Upward Road. The CC zoning district that's been in place is described as a variety of retail sales and services, public and private administrations, offices, and all other uses done with adjacent development and the surrounding community. So the community commercial allows up to 16 units per acre for residential development. So that's the county zoning. We did a comparison between the county zoning and what staff is proposing for these parcels, which is the CHMU. You can see there's a number of similarities. This is trying to fit two different zoning districts, zoning ordinances to try to make them match. So it's not like for like, but it's pretty close. So get an idea of that. Taking a look at the subject properties, the upper left photo is along Old Spartanburg Road, looking towards the corner of Upward Road. There are some existing single-family homes or a single-family home and some other structures on one of the parcels. The upper right is at the corner of Upward Road and Old Spartanburg, looking east along Upward Road. The subject property is to the right. On the bottom left, you're looking really at the center of the subject property with Upward Road behind you. And then there's a tree line and a bamboo line along the rear that really divides it from the residential properties that front on Bell Avenue. And then the bottom right picture there is a cluster of trees, a mix of hardwoods and some evergreens behind the single-family home in that vicinity. Taking a look at the future land use map, the city's 2030 comprehensive plan designates the subject property as high-intensity neighborhood. The adjacent parcels to the east on Upward Road are also designated high-intensity neighborhood. Parcels to the west along Upward Road are designated as neighborhood activity center, and properties southeast of Bell Avenue are outside of the city's future land use map. The county's 2030 the county's future land use map designates the properties to the rear of the subject property as urban service area. It also is in close proximity to an area designated as community service center, where a mix of commercial uses will be contained and residential densities are to be maximized where utilities are present. The subject parcel is also part of the Upward Road planning area, which was adopted in 2011 in response to the need to manage growth outside the ETJ in this area where sewer service would be desired. So moving forward with our criteria for considering a rezoning, the first one is the comprehensive plan consistency. In this case, the proposed zoning of CHMU is consistent across the board with the future land use designation of high-intensity neighborhood, with a minor exception of not requiring 60% open space for all developments. 60% open space is required to achieve the highest density allotment in that zoning district, which is 12 units per acre. The growth management map designates this as a priority infill area. There is a goal to encourage infill development that utilizes existing infrastructure in order to maximize public investment and revitalize existing neighborhoods. There's a strategy to minimize negative impacts from growth and land use changes on existing land uses. Moving on to our population and housing chapter, it further promotes compatible infill development. It states to allow redevelopment and or reuse of single-family homes that directly front on arterials into office or high-density residential uses in coordination with the future land use map, and to encourage mixed land use patterns that place residents within walking distance of services. The Natural and Environmental Resources chapter, the Cultural and Historic Resources chapter, Community Facilities, and Water Resources. None of those chapters had any relevant strategies. The Transportation and Circulation chapter does encourage mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly development that reduces the need to drive between land uses. The second criteria considered is compatibility. Considering the vehicular traffic along Upward Road and the interchange with I-26, the CHMU zoning district permits uses that are compatible with this area and this transportation network. And the design guidelines that are included in that zoning district further support compatibility. The third criteria considered is changed conditions. Upward Road has experienced a significant amount of growth with no less than 9 development requests in the Upward area alone over the last 3 years. While other areas of Hendersonville have experienced growth, we haven't really seen this kind of scale of development in any specific area, especially as it relates to commercial development. The fourth criteria considered is public interest. In this case, the design guidelines, again, found in the CHMU support the creation of compatibility and high-quality development. Additional quality commercial development within the city will generate additional tax revenue. Additional quality residential development within the city would provide needed housing. For public facilities, the site will be served by all city services now. And in terms of the effect on the natural environment, in this case, since this is a standard rezoning or an assignment of zoning, there is no proposed development being considered as part of this. The subject property does feature an existing single-family home, and the site is primarily a field or pasture with one small hardwood tree grove located in the southwest portion of the site, and the rear property line is lined by a dense grove of bamboo. The planning board considered this at their meeting in February. It did include the additional parcel that was removed that fronted on Bell Avenue, which Tyler touched on, but it was approved unanimously, though there was a significant amount of discussion about the appropriateness of that parcel. It was essentially removed. It will remain R1 county zoning. So it is not being annexed. It is not being rezoned. Just making sure that's clear. There's no change from residential to commercial occurring as part of this. The planning board put forth the comprehensive plan consistency statement that is found on the screen, and they supported that with these 3 points of rationale for approval. And we also offer up a draft denial statement should you choose to go that route. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
We will open this public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the rezoning on Upward Road? Yes, sir. If you would give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
My name is Greg Minton. I live at 309 Ellington Creek Lane in Greer, South Carolina. I'm with the Spinks Company, LLC. First, I'd like to thank the council and the mayor. This has been one of the best city council meetings I've been to in my career. So much positive energy I see in the community with everything you have going. So I want to applaud that. That was very exciting news. And we're excited to come into the city of Hendersonville also. But as far as the zoning request, I would ask that you consider this. We look forward to bringing new economic development along this corridor. This is one of the first sites that we have planned in the city of Hendersonville and are hopeful to bring additional projects into the city as we move into this market. It was natural for us as we've been looking at what Hendersonville, the growth in Hendersonville, and seeing what is happening here. We want to be a part of that. So I'd like to ask for your consideration in this rezoning tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to comment on this rezoning? Is there anyone online wishing to comment?
Madam Mayor, we have one hand raised.
Okay.
Lynn, you are unmuted.
Good evening, Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. I wanted to once again speak about the historical significance of this property, the open space along Upward Road. What I heard was that the applicant is asking for annexation, so the city is suggesting CHMU, but we could potentially do C3. And that we have 60 days before assigning what the zoning could be. I'm concerned about some of the, the agricultural uses nearby, the residential uses nearby, the considerations about the buffers for the R1 area in the back. There is some trees on the property. What will be done to protect those trees? What will that be doing to our canopy? I'm concerned that this begins to set the precedence when I look at the property directly next door to this one that once housed the donkey, and the barn is still there, and there's a small lake. That's part of our heritage and historical pastoral landscape. And soon, piece by piece, I don't want to see it going. So if we could try to protect some of that along the way and be thoughtful about the way we design the Upward Road corridor, that would be my request. We already have 3 gas stations along Upward Road. One day there will be no open space, but then gas stations. So how do we do this thoughtfully? There will be an impact with impervious surfaces. That is a concern, of course. And this, like I said, will piece away at the character of what the upward neighborhood used to look like. And how can we continue to preserve some of that and nod to the history and protect some of our open space, our agricultural space along that corridor in conjunction with the county. And then another concern is that there currently is no traffic study for this corridor. So going ahead and doing a traffic study for Upward Road so we can have considerations. A few other pieces of property there, including the open field in front of the Fairfield Inn, ideally we would preserve. I want to thank the gentleman from South Carolina for coming here. What I'm hearing is we don't know that it's going to be a development, but Sphinx has signed on to the project. So it's kind of unsaid that it's going to be a gas station. So there's a lot of considerations that might go into that as far as noise and fumes and everything in conjunction with the neighborhood next door. And I would say for future with Sphinx, I would ask the gentleman to please consider redeveloping sites within Hendersonville and helping us preserve the open space, even considering helping us preserve the property directly next door to this that did historically have the barn and the agriculture. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there anyone else? Anyone else here? We'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property, pins 9577-89-7580, 9577-89-6187, 9577-89-6236, and 9577-89-5289, 9577-89-6416 from Henderson County CC Community Commercial to City of Hendersonville CHMU Commercial Highway Mixed Use based on the following. The petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville 2030 Comprehensive Plan based on the information from staff analysis and because the goals and strategies of LU-7 high intensity neighborhood calls for primary and secondary recommended land uses, locations, and development guidelines which align with the proposed CHMU zoning. Furthermore, we find this petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis, public hearing, and because. Number one, commercial highway mixed use is the zoning district established for Upward Road planning area. Number two, the commercial highway mixed use zoning district is well suited to achieve the goals of the comprehensive plan for this area. Number three, the property is located in an area designated as a priority infill area according to the city's comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the rezoning of this property say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and that has been set. Thank you. Right. Next is a discussion on water and sewer system development fees. And where's Mr. Stirrer?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Adam Stirrer, Utilities Director for the city. Today we'll just go over an overview of water sewer system development fees. I think this is the 5th time that this topic has been presented to this group, as we'll get into a little bit later. So an overview, system development fees. These are fees assessed to new development requiring a new connection that, requiring new connections requiring additional capacity. So really it's not for existing customers. It's just for new connections or existing customers requiring more capacity. System development fees recover costs necessary for system expansion and additional capacity with the mindset is that growth pays its own way. Growth pays for growth. The lack of system development fees places the full cost of infrastructure capacity on the existing water and sewer ratepayers. They should be viewed as a mechanism to ensure the equitable distribution of cost responsibilities between existing and future utility customers. And they are legislated in the general statutes. And part of this, the process, is a written analysis is required, which is attached to the proposed ordinance and included in the agenda minutes, or the packet. Some considerations. Hendersonville charged utilities system development fees until the fall of 2016, and they have not been charged since. They are very common in North Carolina. A recent study in 2019-2018 timeframe, in North Carolina, 81 utilities across the state charged system development fees, and that was within a year or so after the General Assembly passed that legislation. Currently, Hendersonville is the only utility in the top 25 largest by population served in North Carolina that does not currently serve or does not currently charge system development fees. Hendersonville is the 23rd largest utility in the state. System development fees will allow a future reduction in rate increases across all customers, future existing residential, non-residential. They also provide the utility an opportunity to cash fund more capital projects instead of issuing debt. So that will result in future interest savings in the future. So they fund capital projects. This is a highlight of some capital projects that we have under construction now or will be going to construction soon. French Broad River intake, $23.5 million. That project's under construction now, will be finished later this year. A water treatment facility expansion to 15 million gallons per day. Project cost estimated to $2.1 million. The 191 water transmission main along the DOT widening project, that'll be starting, I think, sometime next year currently. $12.7 million. Mud Creek Interceptor sewer, close to $9 million. And an expansion to the wastewater treatment facility at $34 million. And this is just an overview of these projects. There's many, many more in our CIP. Just a $292 million 10-year CIP. And when the study was completed, $180 million were expansion and capacity related projects. These projects are necessary for the continue to provide a reliable water and sewer service as the system grows with new development. Here's an overview of the process. The analysis began in September of 2022. As I mentioned earlier, this will be the 5th presentation to this group with a system development fee component. We've also presented 3 times to the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, twice to the Business Advisory Committee, and once to the Chamber of Commerce. Out of the written analysis study, these are the proposed fees for residential calculated. It's based on a heated square footage basis for residential. The bigger the homes, the more water and sewer usage, and therefore the higher system development fee. Multifamily, it's on a per unit basis, and then mobile home parks also on a per unit basis. Those latter two are typically on a common meter, whereas each house, for all of the multifamily and all the mobile homes. For non-residential, the fee is scaled by a meter size. The bigger meters use more water and sewer, therefore it would be assessed a higher system development fee. So what is new development? Again, I mentioned that this system development fees are legislated in the general statutes. So new development is defined as any of the following occurring after the date the written analysis, the process begins, no more than 1 year prior to the adoption of a system development fee, which increases the capacity to serve that development. The subdivision of land, the construction, reconstruction, redevelopment, conversion, structural alteration, relocation, or enlargement of any structure which increases the number of service units, or any use or extension of the land which increases the number of service units. Service units being how much water and sewer is used. Common new development examples: single-family subdivision, the construction of each dwelling unit on a heated square footage basis. So it's not the entire subdivision that encourages the increased capacity. It's each dwelling unit or each lot. For multifamily residential, it's the construction of each dwelling unit on a per dwelling unit basis. In non-residential, it's construction of buildings, structures, uses of land per connection on a meter size basis. And these are common examples, and they're listed in the draft ordinance. Implementation, again, is legislated in the general statute. The General Assembly didn't make this, made this a little confusing, but for subdivision of land, it's a later of the following, whether it's your time of your application of building permit or when utility service is committed, the later of those two. For all other development, it's the earlier of the time of application for connection or when service is committed. So this is legislated in the general statutes. Yes.
But it says service is committed. That's not the availability. That is that when you set the meter, what does committed mean?
So if you in the draft ordinance, it's let's see here. It's early on. We're proposing to revise section 52-14. So we have to keep in mind we've already committed service to our existing customers. So if a meter is set and we're providing service, we've committed to serve. For new services that are not on the system yet, in order for service to be committed, a complete application for utility service has to be received. That's tap application. They have to pay their tap fee, or tap or meter fee, and a building permit has to be issued. So that's those 3 requirements have to be satisfied currently if a meter is not set. So if that has happened, we've committed service, all of those things. If a fee is implemented, we will start issuing a letter of commitment after the system development fee is paid, and that is basically saying we're committing to serve that use.
Thank you.
Yep. And I get into that right there, actually. Right. So I just said that exact same stuff. So there it is. So I just want to highlight the top is the current practice, and then the second bullet is after adoption of a system development fee. So there's many projects across our service area, which extends, as you all know, outside of the city of Hendersonville that are in various stages of the development process. So there's a couple options of implementation. In front of you, the draft ordinance is written with an effective date adoption of March 7th, 2024. Another option could be to adopt the ordinance and delay that effective date. And that would allow some development projects that are nearing completion currently for getting their meters set, a reasonable amount of time to apply for utility service, to pay their meter and tap fee, and to apply for a building permit. So if they did those three things ahead of that effective date, they would not have to pay a system development fee as written. And then the third option could be to implement a system development fee in phased increments over time. That the written analysis states the maximum amount that the city can charge for system development fees. It is possible to phase that in percentages year over year to that 100% if desired. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have.
Questions?
How many meetings and committees did you say that you guys presented to? How many different committees? I couldn't remember.
Yeah, so the Water Sewer Advisory Committee, 3 presentations, or portions of presentation system development fees. The Business Advisory Committee was presented twice, and then the Chamber of Commerce once last December.
What was the general consensus among all of those committees?
The Water and Sewer Advisory Committee recommended implementation of system development fees. The Business Advisory Committee did not recommend implementation of the fees, and neither did the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm going to assume of the 3 implementation options you put up there that you are in favor of doing the today's date. Yeah, the effective date of whatever happens. I mean,
that is an option. The ordinance is written as such, but delaying that effective date a few months would allow development to get their applications in. They have to be close to receiving service. A lot of these developments haven't started construction of the water lines in their developments. We haven't accepted ownership. We couldn't provide service if they submitted an application.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these developments could. They could apply for service, and we could set a meter within the month,
Mm-hmm.
and they would not have to pay a fee. So. Yes, I think 1 or 2 are good options.
But if we set the March 7th, wouldn't that give that where you're going back to people that have already planned on these, have gotten their loans, and put this additional financial burden on them?
If March 7th was the date, if going to this slide, if they don't have a meter in place already, if they're not being served already, or they have not completed a service application, paid their meter and tap fee, and have a building permit issued, they would have to pay the fees.
Give me some examples
So
we have in place right now.
For example, the current process on building permits are issued before a water meter is set. And then when the water meter is set, then the CO, the certificate of occupancy, is issued. So for example, there are some subdivisions where there are homes being built that we have accepted the water lines in that development, but they have not applied for their meters yet, or there is not a meter set. So in that case, those homes or those units would have to pay a system development fee.
See, that's just something I'm not going to go for.
So
we have to work on.
So an option could be to delay that effective date an amount of time that you feel reasonable to allow those developments that are nearing that completion adequate time to put in those applications and pay their meter and tap fees.
I don't think we're anywhere near ready to do that right now, right? As far as coming up with, I don't know a time frame.
I mean, I don't know how we determine what adequate time.
Yeah, we would have to, John?
Well, let's, I think I've got a I don't think we would have, there'd be a lot of ordinance work. We don't have that tonight, but we still have to have a public hearing, so, that is definitely something that, I mean, I think our recommendation is if council, after you have the public hearing and get all the we get your feedback, if you wanted us to work on some proposed language and options for you, staff would be happy to do that. Adam and Brent and Angie and Daniel to bring you something back at the future. But
that's where I'm at.
Could you give an example of like a rough estimate of what someone's water bill would be like in 5 years and 10 years without system development fees? And then could you give the exact same example 5 and 10 years with system development fees?
Right. So we're estimating to collect, and again, it's heavily dependent on how much development occurs, is how much revenue we generate. So a conservative level of development, we're predicting that it would result in a 1% per year reduction in the future rate increase. So if we had a 6% increase planned with no system development fees, it would be a 5% increase. If it's a more, if development continues at a current rate, is steady, it could be up to a 2.5% reduction in future rate increases. So cumulatively over 10 years, that results in a 8 to 19% reduction in year 10 in a water and sewer bill.
Did you say 8 to 19?
Cumulative, because it compounds over 10 years. So it's a 1 to 2.5% reduction every single year. So it compounds. It's a compounding interest. So it could be an 8 to 19% reduction in year 10 for a water bill and sewer bill. For a residential customer, when your average water bill is $50 to $60 a month, a 1% reduction is not significant, but cumulatively, for a residential customer, it could range somewhere between, over 10 years, $300 to $800 in savings over that time. Now, if you look at a non-residential customer, a heavier user that has bigger bills, that could be, that could be a $6,000 to roughly $15,000 difference over 10 years of paying utility bills for water and sewer.
So one of my concerns is the effect on affordable housing. And I know I read somebody's memo about just key points about this. But like an example, right, the project that we've partnered with Henderson County using ARP funds, or at least they used ARP funds to run water and sewer to the Apple Ridge project, right, which is an affordable housing project. And so if this were to be in place, that's $141,000 extra expenditure for them. I guess I almost kind of worry about what kind of agreement did we get into with the county when we agreed to partner with them and run that line, or run those extensions. Did we get into that agreement with them and tell them, oops, by the way, we're going to come up with like an extra $150,000 worth of bills? Or did they know that? Or because that whole project would kind of hinge on, financing and loan repayment and, those types of things. And then how does that affect affordable housing in the future as well? Like, I know this is a little bit of a different case because we're talking about not necessarily like a for-profit developer, but we're talking about a not-for-profit organization. But, if we're also promoting affordable housing, but then we're, trying to recoup this money as well, like, I don't know how to get around that.
Sure. So, the utility, that was ARP funding. So the utility is not able to fund extensions. We can't treat an affordable housing project different than we can treat a for-profit development. Affordability, those upfront system development fee charges, you did mention there, they intend, or there will be reductions in future water bills. So that is, our existing customers will see reductions in their, water bills for affordability, but we would also expect our future customers to have less of a water bill. So their bill would be more affordable moving forward with implementation of these fees.
But not necessarily a reduction in the bill. The bill is never going to reduce for the next 10 to 20 years, right? So everyone's bill is going to continue increasing every single year. So there's not really a reduction. There's just a reduction at the rate it
Correct.
increases.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because operating costs are continuing to rise, and we have a pretty substantial, we have this is capital improvement plan, a lot of capital improvements planned. Yep.
And is there any way to treat, and I don't think we can, true low-income housing different than, and if I'm clear with this, if it's privately funded, Susan, you may be able to pop if I get this wrong. Privately funded low-income housing has got a 15-year sunset on it, and then it can do whatever. Am I correct with that? If it's privately funded? May I ask that?
What do you mean?
If somebody gets a tax credit to do low income or affordable housing, they get that tax credit, and they have to keep their rental rates at a certain level for a period of time. But I think it's 15 years, and after 15 years, it's all bets are off. So there's a difference in if housing assistance builds something, and if Jeff Miller goes out and builds something.
I think it's tied to, I think that's actually tied to the funding mechanism, I think, is what you maybe just like. If we get, there's a provision in the law that if we gave money for affordable housing, then we could lock them into 15 years, I think is the provision.
It sounds like Councilman Miller, it sounds like you're talking about the low-income housing tax credit, which is a really common vehicle for developing affordable housing around here, and HAC uses it as well as some private developers. But yeah, that sounds right. I can't.
For the record, Susan has shaken her head yes.
Yeah.
Some difference, and I'm sorry, I just wasn't sure how that works, because it matters. If you're wanting to create affordable housing and keep it that, there's one way of doing it. If you're wanting to do it and, have it for 15 years with no guarantees after, that's another way of doing it. So there's a total different way of it financially and long-term looking at it.
I'm sorry, this is actually a question for Susan, maybe if that's okay, about the Habitat homes, because they don't follow that same 15-year guideline, right? They can sell after.
They're building single family. And
Susan.
yeah. Okay, so Habitat is building single family. We also build single family. But what we're talking about, and I think what Jeff's talking about with the LIHTC tax credits, that's the multifamily.
Okay.
So the calculation is for 60 multifamily homes. We would keep those forever. After 15 years, we buy ours out, where private developers, after 15 years, they can sell theirs, and it will no longer be affordable housing.
Because Habitat homes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
We will open this public hearing. Nobody signed up ahead of time for commenting, so it's just whoever wishes to come to the microphone first. and make their comments on the water and sewer system development fees.
I apologize. I didn't know I had to sign up. John gave me some wrong advice.
That's quite all right. You didn't have to. Some people just kind of jumped the gun.
My name is Randy Hunter. I live at 114 South Drive in Hendersonville, and good evening, members of the City Council. I'm here on behalf of the Henderson County Chamber of Commerce. I'm their immediate past chairman, and just like to express our opposition to the proposed system of development fees. This is our position that was prepared, but we do recognize that municipalities do need to generate revenue for infrastructure. And we do believe this proposal as it stands would have negative implications on affordable housing and burden an undue perspective on developers. This imposition of costly upfront fees poses a significant threat to affordable housing initiatives in an era when the affordability of housing is clearly a pressing issue. These financial barriers do risk exacerbating the problem and hindering the growth of much-needed workable, workforce-obtainable housing units. Moreover, the proposed ordinance appears to be disproportionately burdening developers, with substantial upfront costs potentially discouraging investment in critical community projects, and these hefty fees may result in delayed or canceled projects, hindering economic growth and the creation of jobs in our city. While we do acknowledge the necessity of maintaining and improving infrastructure, it is crucial to strike a balance that ensures growth while safeguarding the interests of the community. And we do urge the City Council to reconsider this proposal and explore alternative approaches that promote sustainable growth without disproportionately affecting housing initiatives and placing an undue burden on developers. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I know you'll consider carefully the ramifications of the proposed system of development fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
I'm Ken Gordon, and I reside at 140 Sultana Drive, Hendersonville. I want to say that I oppose system development fees. I think that the burden that places on developers, that is going to be passed on to the buyers of those homes or the occupants of those apartments that are being built. The developers aren't paying these fees. The people that are going to live in these homes are going to be paying these fees. Looking at the proposed for 2,500 square feet, if you just do some math on it, it adds about $27 a month to a 30-year mortgage at today's interest rate. If it's going to save 1% on their water bill in 5 years, that's not $27 a month. I mean, you're going to pay $27 a month for 30 years. That's a tremendous burden to me to place on an individual. I also feel like as a utility, they can borrow money at a rate of about 1/3 of a typical individual. As such, I think that debt should be placed on the utility because that's where it's most economically administered and serviced. Appreciate your time and thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to comment? Is there anyone online wishing to comment?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right. Last chance. Close that public hearing. Council?
Any other concerns? Because obviously, I don't think we're going to make a vote on this tonight, but as far as yes or no, any other, I would like some comparatives from staff. Whether you say 23 out of the top 25 do this, right?
24 out of the top 25 do this.
Is that what it was?
We're the
24
only
out
one.
of the only one?
So Hendersonville, based on population served, Hendersonville is the 23rd largest utility in the state, and out of the top 25 largest, we are the only ones that do not.
I would like to know from some other city managers and stuff, once these things were put in place, what did they see with growth, commercial growth, building homes, building affordable housing? I'd really like to kind of have a feeling out of a few people there. Also, did they go, the numbers we were using here were the maximum amount you could charge per unit, right? Did they all go in hot? Did they all go in at the top level? As much as I have always not liked system development fees, I've never been shy about that piece of it. I do understand how some of it now, with all the CIP things that are going on that we have down the road, how some of it might have to be on the front end because the collection of some of this, so we don't have to borrow as much. I do really want to have some better answers on how we deal with the workforce housing, low-income housing, how we can work with that. I don't believe we can treat low-income housing any differently by law. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So before we do anything of this magnitude, there's a lot of questions that I have unanswered. And I think everybody else from the head shaking and I see have the same questions, and more may come up. So with that being, if you'd like, Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to, I move the City Council direct staff to take next month to consider the concerns expressed tonight and bring back options for City Council to consider at the April 4th, 2024 City Council meeting.
Is there any discussion about the postponement of a decision until next month? All in favor then of asking staff to bring back options at the April 4th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and we will get some more information and talk about it again. Thank you. Next, we have a zoning text amendment, tree canopy preservation and enhancement. Mr. Holloway.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm mostly coming up to invite Daniel to join me. And Daniel will kick off the presentation, and then I'll talk comp plan consistency.
Thank you. Good evening. And I think I maybe have a different slide show to, these are Lou's slides.
Sorry, you tricked you.
That's all right. Yeah. My presentation last week was so good, I want to give it again. Almost verbatim. Uh-oh. I put them in the folder. One moment, please.
I was hoarding the chocolates. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to not.
You want to leave it here?
No, because not yet.
This will work. We'll make this work. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. Here tonight for the.
Can you to speak louder, please?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, get the microphone a little closer. Here tonight for the public hearing on the proposed tree preservation ordinance. You heard a presentation on this last week at your second monthly meeting. And so we're just back tonight for the public hearing. And I've got a little bit of additional information, not in this slideshow, but I'll tell you it. So as you know, the City Council appointed the Tree Ordinance Study Committee about a year ago in April of last year to study and recommend ordinance provisions related to the preservation of the tree canopy within the city of Hendersonville. Presently, tree preservation is kind of on a project-by-project basis. There isn't a baseline standard for that, and so it's commonly an issue that City Council is dealing with for a conditional rezoning. You appointed a number of varying perspectives on the board there, some members of tree board, some members of our other boards, a city council representative and some staff, some members of the business advisory committee. The timeline that is not updated, but like I said, you created the committee about a year ago. We had roughly monthly meetings during the year, presented this ordinance to planning board at their February meeting. You heard the presentation. We also presented this to business advisory committee, and they had some feedback that I'll share with you as well. Again, just high level what the ordinance does and doesn't address. It addresses the preservation of existing trees. It sets a standard there. There are some expanded planting requirements, but it's not the main focus of this ordinance amendment. The ordinance does not address other environmental issues. We didn't attempt to do that with this ordinance amendment. It doesn't address overall developed canopy percentage. So you develop a site, you have to have so much canopy. We're not telling you that. We're starting from the baseline of existing canopy, so preservation. Why do we want to preserve trees? There's some benefits, of course, improved air quality. Trees clean the air. They can prevent stormwater runoff. They control urban heat islands. There's other economic and health benefits. Some things we want to balance there: private property rights, the effect on affordable housing, which is, of course, a major concern of this community. Development constraints on small sites and flexibility for the difficult development terrain we have left in the city. Another quick note on how you measure canopy. I explained this last week, but basically the red circle is the canopy percentage that we're saying is the existing canopy. So we don't take each individual tree. We take kind of a stand of trees and the overlap counts as one, but the space in the middle also doesn't count. A couple of points on existing canopy. The city conducted a tree canopy cover assessment. It's done this in the past. It recently did an updated one. And that cover assessment does a lot of things that I'm not getting into here, but one thing it does is measure the amount of the city that's currently covered in tree canopy, and that's currently 35%. It looked at the city limits in ETJ only. It looks at other things like possible planting area, impervious area. We don't get into that too much in the proposed ordinance. And just on the methodology, the cover assessment used aerial imagery from the USDA's National Agricultural Imagery Program, and that's notable because those are leaf-on conditions. Most of our aerial imagery is when the leaves are not in. So this is just a snapshot from the cover assessment. It's a much longer document than just existing canopy. This is just meant to kind of show you. The dark green there is existing tree canopy in the city, and it kind of looks like those blobs. We took that data and our very capable GIS division of the engineering department overlaid it over the county's tax parcel data. We created a map where you can basically see the existing tree canopy on a given parcel, tax parcel. So here's an example of how that works. I've selected Sullivan Park here. Being a public park, it's got a little more canopy than your typical site, but so 55.5% of Sullivan Park, and that shows the amount in square footage, a little less than 700,000 square feet of canopy on Sullivan Park. The tool basically works like that. You select by tax parcel. Of course, we do have landscaping. We don't have tree preservation requirements, but we do have landscaping requirements in the zoning ordinance for pretty much any development. One thing you have to do is submit a tree survey showing all trees 12 inches in diameter for a lot of developments. We have standards for parking lot landscaping. We've got standards for buffer based on adjacent land uses. We offer incentives towards preservation of existing trees, but like I said, there's no requirement. We require street trees in some areas. The entry corridor overlay district, certain zoning districts also require it. There's open space landscaping requirements in mixed use districts only currently. And as I mentioned, no requirement to preserve existing trees. The proposed changes, we established preservation standards for existing tree canopy. That's the main one. Along with that, we'll eliminate the need for a tree survey. So only a plan showing the tree line, and that's why, of course, our existing tree canopy tool is important there. You wouldn't get credit for preserving an invasive species. There's no requirement to remove an invasive species, but under this proposed ordinance, you wouldn't get credit towards a new landscaping requirement. Trees used to meet new landscaping requirements have to be 75% native species under this proposed ordinance, and that's not the preservation requirement. So that would just be, I have to plant a new tree for my, a new street tree, for instance. A new buffer from multifamily residential to lower density residential. So for instance, a single family development, that buffer is proposed to be an 8-foot type A. You may be familiar with the different buffer types from looking at conditional rezoning applications. And that's a common refrain in multifamily development proposals is that the neighbors who are lower density residential want some sort of vegetated buffer. Common open space landscaping, a new requirement for whenever common open space is required. That's a lot of commercial developments. 1 tree and 5 shrubs per 1,200 square feet. And the idea there is to get some additional vegetation, and in particular tree canopy. Open space landscaping, 1 tree and 5 shrubs per 4,000 square feet. You see that more often, most commonly in the PRD district. And then a requirement for street trees along all streets, unless your development is exempt from the landscaping ordinance entirely. Another thing I should mention, it was in I added it to a slide that unfortunately we don't have. Sorry about that. I will take the blame. But one of the proposed changes in the ordinance that I didn't highlight last week was a slight adjustment downward to the credits for preserving existing vegetation. And the reason for that is with the requirement to preserve existing canopy, people are going to be preserving trees. And we want to make sure that we're also still getting some of that we're not just supplanting new vegetation requirements, our vehicular use area requirements entirely with existing. We want to make sure we're getting some new canopy installed as well with development. So that was the idea, as a slight downward shift in that. And I'm sure we could pull that up maybe with the draft ordinance or something, but basically reducing those credits by about 1. So right now you can get credit for preserving an existing tree based on the diameter at breast height of your existing tree. So, you know, if you have a 12-inch tree, you might get credit for 2 trees that you would otherwise have to plant. Hey, it's on the screen. So I'll get into that. Okay. That being said, there's a slide later on that kind of shows that. And then another thing is eliminating tree board review of conditional rezonings, which has been, I think, talked about throughout this whole process. Right now, the tree board reviews conditional rezoning applications. This ordinance, the idea, as I understand it, would be to eliminate the need for that. But of course, that's a call for city council. Next slide, please. Here we go. So getting into the meat of the proposed tree canopy preservation requirement. This first note here, Lou's going to talk about a little bit more. The standard of which a development has to comply is still a decision that needs to be made by city council. Right now, the proposed ordinance says it would only apply to development sites with 30,000 square feet of existing tree canopy or more. So if no matter the size of your development site, if you didn't have 30,000 square feet of existing tree canopy, there would be no requirement for you to preserve any of it. And if you had 30,001 square feet, you would have to preserve it according to these standards. Like I said, there's some kind of recommendations and options floating around surrounding that, so I'll let Lou talk about that in just a minute. But the preservation requirement basically is setting that baseline. Existing canopy is according to the most recent tree canopy cover assessment. I showed you the tool. That's how we find that out. If there is no data, the property you just annexed on Upward Road, for instance, wasn't in our ETJ, the developer would submit a drip plan showing the drip line of the existing canopy. And if the developer disagrees with our data, say it is in our city limits or ETJ, and they just think we're wrong because the tax parcel data isn't exact, it's not survey accuracy, they can at their option submit a plan showing the canopy as of the date of the cover assessment. So that's an option for them. Our tool is basically meant to be helpful, not just to eliminate the need for that plan. So the standard is in two phases here. We got tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1, we're in the realm now, you have to comply. We're going to say you have to preserve 20% of the existing tree canopy, and there's no option to pay a fee in lieu unless you get a variance approved by the Board of Adjustment. You have to show some sort of hardship there. And that's just baseline. We want at least that much. And then tier 2, there's a lot more flexibility. You have to preserve additional canopy according to the table there, or you can request a fee in lieu. So option 1 would have you preserve another 10% of the total existing tree canopy for a resultant 30%. I've got an example on the next slide. Option 2 would have you preserve 5% and plant a new 7%. So you'd get to move it around and we get a little extra tree canopy. Option 3 would let you cut down all of the rest of the canopy, but you would plant a new 15% for a resultant 35% of tree canopy. Trees you preserve are eligible for credit towards other landscaping requirements as long as that tree meets the criteria. So if it's a buffer tree, it has to be so close to the property line it's meant to buffer from. If it's a vehicular use area landscaping tree, it has to be within 20 feet of the vehicular use area. You can request a fee in lieu for tier 2 canopy, and there's some more on that on a later slide. Note that in addition to any other remedy, but one remedy that we listed in there in the proposed ordinance to put people on notice is that a potential delay of development approval for 3 years if substantially all the trees are removed in violation of the ordinance. And so here's an example. Assuming a 5-acre site with 2 acres of existing tree canopy, the 5 acres, of course, doesn't matter under the current proposed ordinance. We're just looking at the 2 acres of existing tree canopy. And then I've got the table there below where under, say, option 1, you'd preserve 20% of the existing tree canopy for your tier 1 requirement. Then you'd move on and preserve an additional 10%, and you'd be done with 30% of the existing tree canopy preserved, or 26,136 square feet. Or you could choose option 2 or 3, and for instance, under option 3, you would preserve that first 20%, cut down the rest of it, but plant another 13,068 square feet, which is 15% of the existing tree canopy on the site, and we'd end up with 30,492 square feet of tree canopy. An example I showed last week, just because I think it's a good one that shows a project that probably is compliant. I don't have the data from 2015, but the Henderson County EMS, and also it's helpful because they happen to submit a plan that shows the drip line of the trees. So that's the site as it exists today on our existing tree canopy map tool. And so this is the data after their development, but you can see right now they've got about 30.34% of canopy coverage on the site. And looking at the conditions before, it's probably around a third of the existing tree canopy. But also what's really helpful is the highlighted point up here where it says existing tree canopy present and to remain. And they've got, it's kind of faint, but you can see there's like a little cloud coming around here. And so instead of showing little dots on a survey, and a surveyor has to go out there and pull a tape or a caliper on every tree 12 inches or greater, you just dot this line in and say that's where the stand of trees are. And they'd add some information like the area of the tree canopy they're keeping. They'd add the total existing tree canopy so we could know that they're preserving enough, and they'd show the new canopy installation if they chose option 2 or 3. How do we calculate the new canopy that you're planting? I went through this last week, but basically, right now, the primarily developed by the tree board, we have a recommended species list, or whatever the official name of it is, and it lists trees by large maturing, medium maturing, and small maturing. So it talks about their size when mature, and it breaks them out by that sort of category. It also goes into shrubs and flowers and grasses that aren't relevant to this discussion, but it's a lot more comprehensive than just these trees. But basically, this is just a snapshot. This is not even all of the medium maturing trees in the list, but just an example. It lists them by species. So what we did was take all of the trees in a given category, large, medium, or small maturing, and get information from the North Carolina State Cooperative Extension. It's got the mature height and width of the canopy there. And we took the lower end of mature. The reason why we took lower end of mature is because those mature dimensions are assumed under ideal conditions. Not every tree is planted under ideal conditions. And then, of course, with development, the soil is more compacted usually, so that's going to impact the mature size too. So that's why we took the lower end of mature and got an average canopy for each of the different species by category. So, and basically you see here the average mature, lower end of mature canopy for the large maturing trees is 872 square feet, and so on for medium and small. So when you go to plant your new canopy under option 2 or 3, these are the credits you're going to get for planting any one of these given trees. And it's also relevant for a discussion on the fee in lieu. The fee in lieu is an option, of course, for the Tier 2 requirement, and the fee in lieu is based on the cost for the city to plant new canopy to replace the existing canopy you're removing. The rationale there is that we're trying to basically replace what the requirement was the benefit of the requirement to the city. That benefit is the tree canopy. So using those same measurements for the different sizes of trees, we took a weighted average because the city doesn't want to plant all large maturing trees. We want to plant dogwoods and things too. So we don't want to, have the average tree size skew in favor of all large maturing trees. So we took a weighted average, and you can see there it takes almost 50 trees, large maturing trees, to get to an acre. I just used an acre because it was easy to wrap your head around. The calculation is the same for any area. 124 medium maturing trees, 301 small maturing trees, and you get the different weight factors. So the weighted average of those categories is 228.84 square feet per tree. So we're assuming whenever the city plants a tree, it's replacing that much canopy. And then based on the city's average cost to plant a tree, which I understand to be $350, and that would be adopted, that would be basically assessed annually as part of the budget process. We would look at that and make sure that is accurate. But basically, assuming that's the cost to plant and establish a tree, that's $1.53 per square foot of tree canopy that you cut down. So an example, going back to our development site with 2 acres of existing tree canopy, if you chose option 1, you preserve an additional 10%, but you want to cut it all down and pay a fee in lieu. Your fee is $1.53 times 8,712, which is 10% of that 2 acres, for a fee of $13,329.36 for you to be able to cut down all of that. And then I've got option 2, it's half of that, and you install some new canopy. Let's see here. I mentioned some new information. On Monday, the Business Advisory Committee had a special call meeting, and they looked at this and had some recommendations. So I've listed those here. They would like to see the exemption standard be that development sites that are less than 2 acres or have less than 30,000 square feet of existing tree canopy not have to comply with the preservation requirement. So it's kind of a both criteria there that they're asking for.
It's and, not or. right?
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. It
I was
says and.
corrected earlier today.
It says and in all caps on the screen, and I said or. And I typed it this today. Yes, correct. So if your site is less than 2 acres, or it's more than 2 acres, but you have less than 30,000 square feet of existing tree canopy, you would be exempt under this standard from preserving canopy, was the recommendation. Also, recommendation to eliminate tree board review of conditional rezonings with this standard in place. And also a recommendation to increase the credits for preservation of existing vegetation, which is why I made a big deal of calling that out earlier. And so here's the slide. This is what the current proposal would do is basically reduce all of the existing credits for preserved trees by 1. So we move that 2 to 6 inch category down to 2 to 12 inch. We're requiring a developer to plant a 2-inch caliper tree diameter at breast height on average. So makes sense that they could preserve one in that size and get credit for it. And again, like I said, the rationale there was if people are required to preserve existing tree canopy, we don't want that to supplant all of the new landscaping requirements they might have to install, maybe some of them, but we want to make sure that the idea here is to preserve our existing tree canopy so that maybe it can also grow. Did I have anything else? I did not have anything else. I know Lou Holloway's got some information as well, but if you have any questions for me at this point, I'd be glad to take those. Yeah.
Give me an example, 2-acre piece, and I think you sent me, somebody sent me one today, a 2-acre lot that I think originally it was 1 acre that would get kind of a pass, and it's now.
Let me, Jeff, present my section. I might get at this point.
Excuse me.
A little better.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got some illustrations.
Well.
Yeah, well, I better, right, especially after that. And Daniel will come back up at the end as needed, and/or answer from his seat there at the end of the dais as to other questions. All right, so I'm going to go over the planning board process. So Daniel talked about the tree ordinance revision committee and about the ordinance itself, and nearly all of the components of the ordinance. So this is the planning side of things. We'll go through our comp plan consistency and some of those things. But just to recap, these are what we have identified at the 30,000 foot view. What this ordinance does is to establish new canopy preservation standards, new planting requirements for common open space and open space, street tree requirements, native species requirements, additional planting requirements for vehicular use areas with some enhanced flexibility, and makes various changes to submittal requirements and administrative duties. So everything that we've talked about fits into one of those categories. So at the planning board, staff made a number of recommendations. So the tree revision committee had developed the ordinance, and then the planning staff, I had all of my staff look through the ordinance as it was proposed and say, what may we see as opportunities or whatnot, things that we might want to look at more closely. The approved planting list and an annual review by the tree board of their planting list. Really just a naming issue. It's currently the recommended planting list, which often causes confusion because it's not recommended, it's required. So just a name change there. We did early on discuss as we had in the tree revision committee, the relief from the tree board review during the CZD process. And so we had brought that to the planning board's attention also. And then the third one was an exemption standard alignment. So we had noted that 2 acres or less was the existing exemption. We proposed that the exemption align with other triggers in our zoning code for review. So currently, sites which have an acre of disturbance or more trigger erosion and sediment control and stormwater. So there are a series of plans and things that are triggered at that level of development. And those are state established standards. Under that level of development, those requirements are not triggered. And so oftentimes those types of projects aren't having to submit site plans. And then in addition to that, we looked at the 30,000 square feet. So before I go on from these three, I will talk about how Planning Board handled each of the three at their meeting. But I want to talk a little bit more about the disturbance piece. So there's two components to that. The first is the area of disturbance. So this is you guys get my artwork here. So congratulations. So an attempt to display what it means to disturb an acre versus disturb less than an acre. So development has an impact, right? There's usually site grading and things like that. And what you're looking at is if we had two perfectly square, which never happens, 2-acre sites, on the left, kind of in the dash dot, you're looking at a less than an acre of disturbance type of project. So single-family home likely is not going to disturb more. But if that site were vacant to start and someone constructed this on that site, that light brown coloring kind of shows where they may have disturbed the site, and outside of that, they may not have disturbed the site. And then on the right-hand side, same size parcel, more land disturbance, so greater than an acre of disturbance. And so currently, our stormwater and erosion and sediment control standards trigger when you do the thing on the right, and they don't when you do the thing on the left. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece of what we talked about was just the percentage coverage. I promise I'm going to try and tie these together. But a site can have, again, it could be a 2-acre site. It could be I used the example here of a 1.25 acre site and a 2.25 acre site. Could be varying amounts of canopy coverage on those sites, and those varying amounts of canopy coverage would give you more canopy to work with when trying to preserve, or for instance, on the far right, the 25% coverage potentially offer you canopy that's limited in perhaps a difficult location to preserve. So I know there's a lot in here, but basically what I'm trying to show here is that depending on the size of your development, the size of the development impact, and the amount of canopy you have on the site, you may have exemptions in a variety of different ways. So if for instance, we were just to adopt the 2-acre site, every development in the top 2 rows would be required to meet the standard. So whether you had 24,000 square feet of canopy or you had 73,000 square feet of canopy, if it was a 2-acre was the exemption and you were over 2 acres, then you would have to meet the requirement. If we also, or alternatively, adopted the acre of disturbance, then potentially, depending on what kind of development you were doing on your 2-acre site, you may not need to meet the canopy requirement. And then if we also adopted the 30,000 square foot, or 30,000 square foot canopy exemption, if you were in the 3rd row over there, you would not have to meet the canopy preservation requirement. So I'll kind of point to the corners. So if you have a site greater than 2 acres, the proposal for an acre of disturbance and 30,000 square feet of canopy coverage exempts a 2-acre site that has 25% canopy. It's going to catch, conversely, a 1.25 acre site that has a greater amount of canopy to work from. So, but as you get into the smaller sites, you see that the acre of disturbance and or the 30,000 square feet of canopy tends to exempt a vast majority of those. So you really are, the idea between the acre of disturbance is to align with what our administrative requirements are. Anyways, you have to turn in a site plan if you disturb more than an acre. You have to have an erosion and sediment control plan. You have to do stormwater. And so there's a variety of sort of triggers that you're already doing. And so that aligns with that piece. And then the 30,000 square feet is a design flexibility exemption that recognizes that the less canopy you have to work with, the harder it is going to be to preserve a piece of that. The more canopy you have on your site to work with, the more viable it will be to meet the preservation standard without limiting what you can do on the site. We did look, I will note just real quickly, overall, 2 acre sites within the existing city, of all the parcels we have, there's over 11,500 parcels in the city. 95% are less than 2 acres. 90% have less than 30,000 square feet of canopy. So in either case, we're talking about a very narrow range of parcels within the city that the canopy preservation standard would be applicable to. So Jeff, I don't know if I did any good there, but we can talk more about it. But I did want to kind of go through that. You have a number of choices. I mean, these are, you can kind of toggle these. What I would highlight is we're trying to attach, in the staff recommendation anyways, we're trying to attach one to our existing administrative processes and the requirements that developers already have to meet in terms of documents they have to submit to us, and then create some flexibility with the total canopy that a site has to have to start. So this did go to the legislative committee and was reviewed by them. They were generally supportive. I'm going to just go through the comp plan consistency pieces. For the record, we do have a number of elements of our land use and development strategies in the comp plan that are applicable, including LU 3.5, which efforts strategy to minimize negative impacts from growth and land use changes on existing land uses, to update the zoning code to ensure conformance with the comp plan. Under population and housing, promote the installation of street trees through private redevelopment projects and targeted installations. Natural and environmental resources strategy, NR 2.3, seeks to promote preservation of woodlands. Mature trees and wooded areas are significant community defining natural features that contribute to Hendersonville's identity. Excuse me. Didn't have anything under cultural historic resources per se. Under community facilities, there was a discussion around park streets, which is interesting, that extend parks into neighborhoods, and talks about landscaping and street trees and pedestrian path treatments as a way of doing that. And then in transportation and circulation, incorporating complete streets into future roadway projects. In terms of compatibility, the proposed text amendment seeks to promote compatibility between new development on sites with a surrounding existing development by reducing the removal of existing site vegetation. As we all know, in terms of change conditions, there has been increased pressure on greenfield sites throughout the city, both in the ETJ and beyond. And previously, these locations that were unimpacted by large-scale development, we're seeing development impact the character of surrounding neighborhoods. So, public interest, the proposed text amendment aligns with the public interest. It seeks to offset some of the impacts of large-scale development. Proposed text amendment does not have a large impact on public facilities. And of course, the effect on the natural environment, it would offset a portion of the ongoing impacts of new development on the natural environment within the city. So Planning Board reviewed at their February 8th meeting. There were 7 members in attendance, and all the staff were there. Overall desired amongst the Planning Board to support the adoption of the new tree ordinance. The board supported the 2 staff recommendations, renaming the planting list and aligning the exemption standards, but they did not recommend approval of removing the tree board from the review process. Overall, the motion to recommend City Council adopt the new ordinance carried unanimously, and they adopted this consistency statement. And this information and consistency statement is in your motion. And then the Planning Board's recommended rationale for approval was as follows. And we do have draft rationale for denial available too. So, and then I'm available to answer questions, as is Daniel. I'm going to call him back up if we need to.
Questions?
I'm a little confused by that chart that you presented. I don't think I've ever seen that one before.
It is new. I was,
having trouble comprehending it.
okay. Let's go back to it. It's a whole lot of numbers, isn't it? Yeah, that's why. So the big thing with the numbers would be these 2 pieces of it. So what it does is it tries to show the impact of if development is less than an acre of disturbance versus more, and then what kind of canopy coverage a site has. So the less than an acre or more is on this side. So these sites would be, if you have less than an acre of disturbance, you're here and here. And if you're more, you're here and here. And then the canopy coverage is the calculation across the top. There are 3 exemption standards that you can choose from. You could choose any of them. The recommendation from staff was to include the less than an acre of disturbance or the 30,000 square feet. Basically, if I go through each of these, under every situation, this would not be exempted. So a 2.25 acre site with 75% canopy would not be exempted by any of the exemption standards we suggested. The 50% canopy on that same site would also not be exempted. So in no situation does a 2.25 acre site get exempted. If the 30,000 square feet were adopted, then this 2 acre site with a smaller canopy would be exempted by the 30,000. So in those cases, it's development that's bigger than an acre of disturbance. You're talking about we'll use tonight's example, gas station, and they're going to disturb more than an acre. They're going to do erosion and sediment control. They're going to have to do stormwater. All of those things are happening, and they're only going to be exempted from the canopy requirements if we adopt a 30,000 and they have less than that. Everybody feel reasonably good about that one. The next layer is 2.25 acre site with less than an acre of disturbance. In that case, if you adopt the less than an acre of disturbance point, none of those sites would have to meet the canopy requirements. So they're exempted both by being over 2 acres and by being 30,000, or excuse me, by having less than an acre of disturbance.
This is all just about preserving canopy.
It is.
They have to preserve 0. What, and I know I'm jumping to a different thing, what would they have to plant on it?
Sure.
What do they have to leave it with?
So, I mean, the planting standards is everything in Article 15. So There are a number of new standards that are added to that. Probably most notably for new commercial development would be the requirement for common open space plantings and street trees. So in addition to the vehicle use plantings that our projects currently have to provide, they'd also be planting within their common open space, which currently isn't always triggered, depends on what kind of development it is. And then they'd also be planting street trees, which they're not currently required to plant unless they're on an entrance corridor. So there are significant additional planting requirements that are in addition to the canopy preservation standards.
So just to be clear on that, no matter which exemption level we choose, they still have to always do those.
That's right. So the exemption is just, there's two parts to the ordinance, right? There's what's already there on the site and what would be required to be left if development happens on a vacant site. And that's one standard. We apply that at the beginning of the development. And then for whatever is proposed, whatever new development is proposed, there are new planting requirements that would then come into play. And there are a variety of those that have been added in the proposed ordinance. And again, most notably the open space, the common open space, the street trees, and some enhancements to the vehicular use areas. So I can see by your looks that this is not a well-received chart, and that's fair. I know it is. I think if I can go back maybe and look at this example, and what we see in the planning department oftentimes when we're enforcing new standards is the unintended consequence when the thing that's trying to be saved is already of a minimal element of the site. So if you have a canopy coverage like over here, 25% of the site, and you need to cut a driveway in, and our requirements say that you've got to put your building up 5 feet from the front of the property and that your parking has to be on the side or the rear, all of a sudden, all of those trees that we want to conserve on that site are right where we also are telling you where you need to put your building. And so the more trees there are on the site, the easier it is to preserve. The fewer trees there are on the site, the harder that becomes. And the larger the scale of the development, the more requirements are being triggered already. So we're really trying to just say, if you have not a lot of trees already, we're not going to try and make you preserve 20% of those because it can be really tricky and it can cause, I think we end up with people going to the BOA a lot. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a lot of trees or your site is covered in a significant chunk of vegetation, then you're going to have to figure out a way to save 20% of those because, you know, they're all over your site and it's a little easier to work and set aside 20% of those. And if you're not doing that big of a development, yeah.
In the end, you won't just have 20% of that.
That's right.
You will add to that with.
Right, that's right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And 30% are the, you know, the numbers, with the preservation standards, 30%, you have some flexibility with 10 of that. So we're really just trying to say that larger scale development is already involved in figuring this stuff out. And the more trees you have on your site, the easier it's going to be to figure that out. And I'm sorry for the chart. I didn't fully learn my lesson from the lighting ordinance.
So the idea of this, besides preserving tree canopy, is that for a developer, they would start out knowing what the rules are.
That's exactly.
And they wouldn't get thrown a curve partway through saying, oops, wait a minute, you got to do some more. So it should simplify the process for the developer.
Yeah, so There are two main components to that. One would be the elimination of having to do the tree survey, which is a significant cost and on-site impact that, especially for larger, fully wooded sites. And the second part would be the tree board review. So the tree board offers a lot of feedback on the CZD process, and want to express gratitude and appreciation for what they do and the time and energy they put in. In talking through and developing the tree ordinance, one of the goals was to tackle some of the primary things that come up in those discussions. And canopy preservation and open space plantings are two that, consistently come up. There are others that they will tell you that aren't in here. But in terms of, establishing what that canopy coverage standard would be and then being able to apply it, I would note that importantly, this will apply to beyond just CZD projects. So the impact of the tree board is currently limited to the CZDs. The adoption of the tree ordinance would expand that. So there are a lot of positives in that.
Any more questions? Okay.
Let's go to this last one in case you need that for any reason.
All right. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
All right, we will open this public hearing. And we did have a few people sign up ahead of time. I will go through that list, and then anyone else who wishes to speak may do so. Jenny Faust. And again, if you give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
Good evening. My name is Ginny Faust, and I live at 727 Florida Avenue. I worked as the city planner for Hendersonville from 1985 to 1991. I would like to make the following comments in support of the revisions to the zoning ordinance for tree canopy preservation as proposed by the tree board. I would also like to provide a little background regarding how the first regulations in the zoning ordinance for tree protection and landscaping came about. These regulations also established the tree board. Around 1988 or 1989, all the parcels fronting on Four Seasons Boulevard had not yet been developed. An announcement was made that a Taco Bell restaurant was planned for one of the remaining lots, but a giant oak tree on the property that had been a community focal point for probably 200 years would have to be cut down to make room for the building. Many people were upset by this loss. Discussions started about possibly revising the zoning ordinance to consider requirements for tree protection and landscaping when commercial properties were developed. I spoke with Mayor Don Michaelov about forming a committee composed of people who were in favor of these regulations and those who had strong concerns about this approach. We started out with a group of 10 or so people with different opinions, but the first couple of meetings with this committee were not very productive, and people quickly became frustrated with the process. Instead, we came up with the idea that a smaller subcommittee made up of 4 people, 2 business owners who had strong beliefs in property rights, and 2 people who were committed environmentalists, would meet and hopefully work out the issues. These 4 people were Dan Waddell, Marilyn Gordon, David Malpass, and Stephen Black. The subcommittee met regularly for months to explore options. I no longer remember how long it took. The 4 members came to the conclusion that they would only work on the consensus principle, that everyone had to agree on a proposal for it to move forward. Over time, the give and take of opinions and ideas led the members to having a better understanding of everyone's underlying reasons for their particular beliefs. In addition, trust among the members also developed. Eventually, this led to compromises that had previously been unacceptable, if not unthinkable. When the subcommittee developed the final wording, everyone in the community believed that because those who agreed with their position had said it was acceptable, no one objected to the ordinance language and the amendments were passed. To this day, when I think back on my career as a planner, this process and the trust that unfolded in our group remains one of my happiest and most satisfying memories. The members of the tree board have worked very hard through the years to find a balance between development and the protection of our environment. Now that development is taking place at a much faster pace, their work is even more important. I would ask that the council support their revisions to the existing language. It is important that our tree canopy remains viable, native trees and landscaping are encouraged, and the underlying web of birds, insects, and plants that this canopy supports continues so the city we all love can thrive in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Next is Glenn Lang.
My name is Glenn Lang. I live at 623 Ferncliff Lane, and I'm one of the members of the tree board. Good evening, Madam Mayor and the members of the council. We would like to thank the council for the opportunity to participate in this discussion, to comment on this important topic, and to thank the members of the Tree Ordinance Committee, or Revision Committee. We want to especially thank two members of the council, Debbie Roundtree and Lindsay Simpson. The tree board is pleased overall with the outcome of the committee's work. We think it's vitally important to integrate trees into the city's commercial and housing development projects. It will especially contribute to protecting the city's tree-centric character that makes Hendersonville a wonderful place to live. The tree board would like to provide a few additional comments. The tree board has particular concerns about three parts of the proposed ordinance, and they are: number one, the payment in lieu provision that substantially undervalues mature trees that a developer can remove in the preservation requirement. Number two, the size of developments that are proposed to be exempted from this ordinance. And number three, the proposed elimination of the tree board from the community development review process for proposed projects. The payment in lieu calculation provided in the staff's presentation and the tree canopy wording that's actually in the new proposed ordinance does not come close to reflecting the landscape value that trees provide, and it completely ignores the environmental value of trees. The environmental value of trees has been recognized for many years. The city's own documents outline those values in the current comprehensive plan and in our municipal code. And recently, the city received a tree canopy assessment report that calculates Hendersonville's tree canopy environmental value at more than $7 million annually. The tree board believes that any tree management plan must consider the true value of trees. Rather than stipulating a value in code language, we recommend allowing the tree board to work with stakeholders to attempt to develop a more realistic tree value calculation as the council develops its fee structure. In our second comment, the tree board would like to recommend staying with the development land and canopy size exemption proposed by the planning staff that you just heard about. Enlarging this exemption, as some would recommend,
would allow for far more mature trees to be eliminated because of the type of developments we see expanding in our tree-centric city limits. Our third concern is the proposed elimination of a tree board ordinance responsibility that we have had for many years, back to Jenny's time as a planner. We have been assisting the planning staff in reviewing proposed projects and making recommendations for landscape improvements. We believe our work with developers has led to better protection and improvement of our natural environment. One of the few entities in the city that works on that issue. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mary Davis.
Good evening. My name is Mary Davis, and I live at 317 North Justice Street. Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Living in Hendersonville, I think about the character of our tree-centric city every day as I walk and bike through Hendersonville. I'm grateful for the mature trees that line the sidewalk on 4th Street when my husband and I walk most mornings to get coffee downtown. I'm so pleased that last spring, when the council established a review of our current tree ordinance in order to help maintain the character of our tree city, keeping in agreement with our comprehensive plan and municipal code. I want to thank city staff Daniel Heyman, Mark Steerwalt, Lou Holloway, and Councilwoman Lindsay Simpson for their hard work in guiding the tree ordinance revision committee. As a member of the tree board and city resident, I am pleased with the changes being made with some concern and exception for 2 items. First, giving possible exemption to lots between 1 and 2 acres. Much of the remaining land, as was said tonight, that's in our city limit that can be developed and redeveloped in the city are parcels of 1 to 2 acres. These 1 to 2 acre parcels are integral to the tree character of our community. I would also like to see the city work on a fee and lieu schedule that takes into consideration the environmental value of our mature trees. Trees throughout the years have given Hendersonville its character. To be without mature trees is to be without our roots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Nancy Diaz.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Diaz. I live in Lenox Park neighborhood. I am Mountain True Southern Regional Director and resident of Hendersonville. Mountain True is your local environmental advocacy nonprofit with over 1,700 members and supporters living in Hendersonville. Today, on behalf of Mountain True, I'd like to express my support for the text amendments recommended by the Tree Ordinance Revision Committee, which you appointed. These text amendments are what our city needs to establish a standard for tree canopy preservation and increase efforts to enhance canopy established by new development. There are 2 other positions that are not in the original text amendments recommended by the revision committee that I'd like to address. First, we support the tree board's position to not include the fee and lieu provisions suggested by city staff. It would be wise for the valuation of trees removed to be determined by an urban arborist, and that will vary by project. For matters requiring subject matter expertise, such as pay and lieu fees, we recommend City Council requests that the tree board work with city staff to determine a valuation process that balances an accurate accounting of the loss of mature trees with the need to build new affordable housing. The tree board is motivated to work with stakeholders to establish reasonable values. We support the city tree board remaining a part of the review process for new developments. In addition to addressing questions regarding tree canopy, the city tree board responds to concerns related to other important vegetation involved in the projects being reviewed. We have a gorgeous, diverse landscape where a one-size-fits-all approach to addressing tree canopy loss issues is not the answer. New developments not only affect tree canopy, but also other plants and vegetation that impact our ecosystem. I'm going to go off my script a little bit. Today, I witnessed us, the city annexing roughly 6 acres of the county. And based on the discussion reviewing the zoning of these lots, I believe that they will also have to follow ordinances such as the one we're discussing today. So today's discussion on preserving tree canopy could flow into future annex parcels, and that's important. Thank you for your time to review the important issues with the public, and I hope you will make a decision that is in line with the recommendations of the committees you've appointed and will support the preservation of our city's beautiful treescape.
Thank you so much. Those are the people who had signed up. So anyone else who wishes to speak, please come forward.
Sorry, Randy, I led you astray.
That's all right. Randy Hunter, 114 South Drive. I'm here on behalf of the Henderson County Chamber of Commerce. Just want to say we're opposed to the tree canopy ordinance. While we acknowledge the environmental goals, we feel the advocate for necessary adjustments. We'd recommend the exemptions for development on acres less than 2 or less, ensuring a balanced approach, considering the diverse scales. Secondly, we propose removing the tree board from the approval process and trusting decision-making to the planning board and the city council for efficiency. We also encourage trade-offs between landscaping regulations and tree canopy requirements. It is essential to foster substantial development without excessive compliance cost. And finally, we express concern about affordable housing and urge thoughtful consideration of potential economic implications. Then, by adopting a balanced and nuanced and flexible approach, we feel the environmental objectives can be achieved without compromising community growth. Thank you for your consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak?
Ken Gordon, 140 Sultana Drive. I had the pleasure of serving on the tree committee. Lindsay Simpson made it clear at the start she wanted everyone to be unhappy, and I think she accomplished that. Daniel, you did a great job putting all this together. I know a lot of changes took place throughout the process. I do feel like the 2-acre exemption that the Business Advisory Board requested is reasonable. I think the 30,000 square feet, I understand from a zoning administration perspective, you know, they don't want a 5-acre parcel that happens to be clear, but have just a few trees in one corner that really can't be saved. They don't want that to be prevented from being developed. So I think that's the reason for the 30,000 square feet. I do think the 2-acre requirement before this takes effect is reasonable when you consider that smaller sites do have to comply with stormwater. A lot of other factors that, you know, you're seeing projects take more acreage to be done now, which drives up the cost of smaller projects, and it makes them more difficult to fit on properties, things of that nature. And I think the tree canopy, although it is important and valuable to the city, and it's, you know, important to everyone, I do think for smaller sites it needs to be at least exempted for 2 acres or under, just to allow those sites to be developed properly without, you know, over restricting that use. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak?
I'm Susan Frady, 330 Hart Road. I also was a member of the Tree Revision Committee, and I thank Lindsay for all her work and Daniel for all that he did to put it together. I'm here representing, of course, Henderson County Partners for Economic Progress, and we are in favor of the tree ordinance as presented by the committee with the recommended changes from the Business Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone online? Okay.
Madam Mayor, we have 2 hands raised.
All right.
Lynn, you are unmuted.
Okay, thank you for your time. Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. I unfortunately am not quite as prepared, but I've been taking notes for about a year now. So I wanted to, yes, start by thanking the city council for taking up this, for the planning board, for all the staff who helped put this together. As some of the council members know, I've been asking for a tree ordinance for at least 4 to 5 years now, so I'm super excited the day is finally here. I wanted to, mention as an 8th generation Henderson County resident, my grandparents instilled in me the value of trees. We actually have a historic heritage tree on our property, and they taught me from very small how to have a relationship with trees within your own yard, how to, protect from the wind, how to have the different benefits that come from trees. So that's been instilled in me for a long time. Some important points. The comp plan feedback showed significant support for our urban forests, support for maintaining and enhancing our forest tree canopies, and as well as our green space and preserving Hendersonville's distinct character and identity. Originally, I believe the tree board wanted to preserve 100% of the tree canopy. Today, we're at 30%. I think they went to 50% and then it went down to 30%. So, that is a huge cut. I would have to say these system development fees, if we could, subsidize some of these to ensure that we can allow for affordable housing and kind of make a loophole there, that would be great. We also need to grow our tree canopy. So 35% really is not enough. I think of 6 generations from now, like I'm 6 generations from before, and I would love to see more than 35% of our tree canopy, here for our relations. The fee in lieu of really does need to reflect the actual value of a tree. A couple weeks ago, I was in that exact room that you're sitting today, and Steve Pettis from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension was speaking. And to the councilwoman's point about what is the value of trees, the ecological values, the tree canopy provides services, cooling through shading, holds rainwater, thereby regulating runoff and stream flows, collects airborne particulates and cleans the air. Trees are a carbon sink. They provide mental health benefits. Trees protect smaller native plants, providing habitat. And he also had on the screen right behind, and it was showing right behind where you're sitting today, that a tree provides over $161,000 in soil, water, CO2, O2 value over its lifetime. So when I see something talking about removing 2 acres of trees for a value of $6,000, that is not the equivalent, and I'm very concerned. Let's see, moving along here. Another concern I had on the committee was there was no arborist. So there was, people from here and there, but no arborist. And I think that was really important to have. We had plenty of people from the business community, but I didn't see people that were experts on trees. And I think that that's really important when making these decisions. And then, I'm thinking, what do we have already and how can we take steps forward? So for me, I think that it's important to keep the inventory and the tree survey. That way we can continue to inventory what we have before it's lost forever. Just like I was taught to have a relationship with the trees and the wildlife, within 2 months, basically anything could be chopped down, but at least we would have a survey of what we lost. And I believe we need to keep the tree board oversight. I understand that there's suggestions to make this easier for the developers and for the staff, but the public, the tree board, the planning board, they're all asking for you to maintain tree board oversight. That's over 12 appointed representatives on boards that you've appointed that are asking you to keep the tree board oversight, as well as your council liaison, Councilwoman Roundtree, to the tree board. Please listen to this. We can always take them out after, once we've, gone over some of these road bumps. I think that Councilwoman Roundtree's emphasis on education is essential. The U.S. Forest Service on their website, under value of urban forests, they talk about the benefits from air, from energy, from cooling to heating to water filtration, and the many benefits. So you can definitely check that out online if you need further education on why trees are so important. Moving right along. I noted in an email from Mr. Lang that, that the tree board also helps, around reducing steep slope developments, reducing mass grading, increasing stream buffers, that have a direct impact on the existing tree canopy. And also they help to impose the stream buffers, that is important for urban forest management and the mitigation of adverse human effects like erosion. Another point here is that the Cherokee people themselves believed that the trees were considered standing people, therefore kin like to us. They provide our lifeblood through water and air and all of these values. So I want to honor the people that were here before us and how much they valued the trees as well and how they protected them for us now. Moving along, let's see. Learning from the Asheville Zoning Department and Urbis Forester that, after the plan was implemented, there was a learning curve and then eventually no complaints, but I do think during that learning curve part, we keep the tree board with the oversight. Let's see. Okay. Also in Asheville, property owners must secure a tree removal permit to remove trees in right-of-way, in riparian buffers, commercial properties, and steep slopes. And that process is done by a certified arborist. Asheville requires a permit for grading and mass tree removal, which is also classified as grading. They also have a tree canopy calculator that allows to search for a parcel, see their percentage of canopy for that address, determine the tree canopy district, and possible fee in lieu options. In their model, they have 3 canopy districts, a downtown, an urban, and a suburban, each with preservation credit criteria. And then the fee in lieus must be used within whichever district they originate. I think that's an important point. Moving along. All right, let's see. So the tree canopy assessment, that allows you to understand your eligibility for grant funding, database guidance for municipality decision-making. It also prioritizes tree canopy needs across the city and helps to provide data of where the needs are and the hot spots. I also think besides the tree canopy assessment, having the sustainability plan, the parks and green space plan, the pedestrian plan, and the comp plan all informs the nuanced needs of the different land types in different neighborhoods with different economic needs and historic uses. Let's see. And also the tree assessment can help with this because it helps to interpret census data tracks for the funding and demographics with nuanced land use and zoning on specific parcels. Like I said before, where was the arborist? Where was the urban forester? There was one that recently came to speak on behalf at the tree board at the city hall, very informative. One point that he made is that the addition of an urban forester would help us to understand biodiversity as spread throughout the city, aiming for an age diverse approach so that different ages of trees in different sections, and we're conscious of that instead of just blanket, ordinance. And then my question is, the tree board, they brought this request forward for an ordinance. Why are we creating a gateway for less oversight by removing the tree survey and by removing the tree board overview and basically kicking them out of the process? Especially, the survey is important for those large development tracts because we're losing our forest and we want to keep track. And I will try to wrap it up here. I just want to point out that I was not allowed to provide public comment at any of the tree ordinance meetings for over the past year. There was a public comment allowed. I'm sorry, that was at the tree ordinance committees, no public comment. And then there was a public comment allowed at the planning board, but only for a few minutes. So really the public hasn't had too much time for feedback. And then I do think that ideally both tiers would go to the Board of Adjustment, especially for approval of any fee in lieu ofs. But I do have some concerns because some members on the Board of Adjustment were also on the tree ordinance committee, I believe, and they are against the tree ordinance. So I'd be a little concerned. And then as far as the site, like how much site, like is it 2 acres or less? I personally believe all developed sites need to have the oversight. If it's under an acre, however much is disturbed, what happened. I mean, that's my opinion, is that it actually should just be any developed property, no, at least an acre. And then as the previous speakers that started spoke, trees and forest are community and wildlife focal points, both historically, spiritually, interpersonally, and for wildlife. Let's see.
Can you please try to wrap up soon here?
Yes, thank you for this. I am wrapping up here. Thank you. So let's see. I think the tree canopy coverage map is a great start. I did see quite a difference between the first woman who spoke that was once on the planning board speaking, on behalf of the tree board, as opposed to Miss Frady, who was also on the planning department, but now she is lobbying for private interest. So I do see a very big difference. And like I said, one other thing that they mentioned was that the forester mentioned was that traditionally there's a retention of topsoil that's used on the property and held on the property and then used and put back on the property. But apparently we don't do that within Hendersonville. And I think that that's an important consideration when we're removing trees, is to keep the topsoil. So yes, once again, I would ask for you to keep the oversight of the tree board and keep the tree survey. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The other person who wishes to speak?
Ken Fitch, you are unmuted.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. In addition to and in support of the comments that have been offered previously, with regard to the ordinance before you, the one disturbing and counterproductive aspect of the ordinance is the removal of the city tree board from the review process. The tree board, with its specific focus, knowledge, and expertise, plays a critical role in the review process that is both educational and ecological, as referenced by Council Member Roundtree at the last meeting. The tree board assesses not only tree canopy, but also other site vegetation, including small trees, shrubs, and grasses, and their ecological interactions, especially important as each site may have its own ecosystem character. And remember that the tree board was an active co-sponsor of the Bee City and Pollinator Protection Initiative that has had impacts on the total environment and the local economy. The tree board review often engenders a fruitful dialogue with developers, with consideration and suggestions for alterations and adjustments that enhance environmental sustainability and can be cost-effective and cost-reductive. This is especially helpful as many developers are not local, but from out of state or the area with limited awareness of local ecology or city character. The tree board's continued role in the ongoing review process and in this ordinance, which it initiated, will be important going forward, as well as in consideration of other vegetation issues and consideration of other future amendments that may be necessary to this ordinance, especially in view of the forthcoming Gen H comp plan. The planning board specifically rejected the proposal to remove the tree board from the review process, and they know the input that the tree board can offer during this whole process of site review. And the planning board voted to continue the tree board's participation in the process that can be complicated and site-specific and require a range of considerations, and the tree board does offer important input and assessment. But in all this, we have to understand the goal. And the goal here is to render a thoughtful and fully informed assessment and decision regarding a project. And not only for its immediate purpose, but also long-term impacts on the city and its natural environment. As the Gen H surveys reveal, over 90% of respondents value the environment as important, very important, or extremely important. We should support and encourage high-quality projects that are environmentally sustainable, compatible with neighboring properties, and provide a high-quality environment for those who would live or work at the development site long after the developer has gone. There's been a mention of speeding up the process, but haste makes waste. A tree board recommendation early in the process can offer positive input and assessment. But again, going forward, we must have a thoughtful and fully informed process for assessment and the decisions that impact our city and its unique character. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Not. There were a few digital comments, two of them, one just in general supporting tree canopy and the other supporting the ordinance. With that, we will close this public hearing. Council. Motion, or do you want time to look at those charts again?
I have a question about just the fact that we're going through the plan right now. And I think it's scenario, well, all the scenarios really are really focusing on infill development. And so I guess I have a lot of concern if we're really trying to focus on infill development and then on a parcel of 1 acre, I'm not sure exactly how many units or homes that you would put on a 1 acre, potentially affordable housing type structures, whether it's smaller square footage, and then how that's directly affected by maintaining a tree canopy on that property or falling under that guideline. Is it possible to then create an affordable housing project, infill development on a parcel that's that size? I don't know. I have a lot of questions in general, and I feel like I got a lot of new information tonight that I had not yet seen before. So I don't actually feel comfortable making any vote on the tree ordinance tonight. Oh, okay. I would like to move that the city council direct staff to take the next month to consider concerns expressed tonight and bring back options for the city council to consider at the April 4th, 2024 city council meeting.
Okay. The motion is to postpone consideration to the April 4th meeting. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of postponing to the April 4th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and staff has some more work to help us through this. All right, new business. There is a resolution approving interlocal agreement to merge the Hendersonville and Laurel Park ABC systems. Let's do this.
All right. I guess I'll do it.
Okay.
I was expecting Chuck McGrady to be here to do that. Our ABC manager, Jeff, is in the room, and Angie is off at where she should be. Her son's final basketball game. He's a senior, so that's where she is. So she's doing that tonight. So what you have before you in your agenda package is a proposed ordinance, or excuse me, agreement and also a resolution authorizing the manager and the city attorney to proceed with executing if we get concurrence from the town of Laurel Park. But it's an agreement between the town of Laurel Park and the city of Hendersonville to merge our two ABC systems, ABC boards, into one entity that would manage the 3 stores in Hendersonville and the 1 store in Laurel Park. And also the revenue in the existing systems would be equal or maintained at the current level, whereas the stores in Hendersonville, those funds would stay with the Hendersonville stores. The funds derived from the Laurel Parks would stay with Laurel Park, the town of Laurel Park, so the revenue would stay equal. But the idea is to, over time, reduce overhead by being more efficient by having one ABC board. And secondly, also benefiting the stores by creating a larger system that will allow for better product or more product. Jeff, correct me if I get wrong. Am I in the right? I'm going the right direction. And so the idea is that we would move forward with merging the 2 systems where there would only be one ABC board. This would require concurrence from the town of Laurel Park. They still have to address it. They may or may not have changes, but we would like for City Council to adopt a resolution. Ms. Beaker did draft the ordinance or the agreement, and we would like to get council to approve that.
Questions? Discussion? Motion?
Give me a minute. How did you do this? I mean, how did this happen? Is it just I was on the ABC board for a long time, and I'm just confused.
And Jeff Nance, I give credit to Jeff and his experience we all know Chuck McGrady, and Chuck doesn't take no for an answer from anybody. So I wish he was in the room, but
I do too. I mean, but Jeff,
yeah, go ahead.
So thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members, and I want to give a lot of kudos to John Conant and Angela Beaker. They've invested a lot of time in this effort, and we've been in discussions for 28 months with Laurel Park. The North Carolina ABC Commission is a strong advocate of merging the ABC stores and consolidating them. Of course, we generate about $12 million in revenues in Hendersonville. Mr. McGrady is a strong advocate of merging into a county system at some point, and the commission is in favor of that as well. They have approved the agreement. The North Carolina ABC Commission has approved it as it's written, and we're waiting for response from the town of Laurel Park. Not sure if you all need any additional information pertaining to this, but
I mean, nothing to affect the schools still get their money from, because you guys give quite a bit of money to the school.
that's correct. So this budgeted year, $800,000 in distributions, of which 50% go to the city of Hendersonville, 25% go to Henderson County, 24% go to the library, and 24% go to the Henderson County schools, 1% goes to the library. In addition to that $800,000, there's another approximate $100,000 worth of revenues that go to local organizations like Safe Light, Hope Coalition, Blue Ridge Community College. That is one great thing about our current system. We're one of 17 states that are controlled. If we were to privatize the ABC system, that money would go away. And so these are recommendations for business improvements in order to keep our system as it exists.
So just kind of streamline everything.
Correct.
make it better. Nobody's fighting. It's all, you guys been working on it. That's a well-kept secret. Congratulations. And, okay, I was just confused when it first came up, and doesn't take a lot, especially after looking at Lou's charts, so.
And I just want to say, as many people have said earlier tonight, this is a great community that have a lot of, you all have a lot of things to consider, and you listen to people, and you try to respond with compassion. I know, and it's not easy what you all do, but it is, I tell my wife all the time, she lives in Asheboro. I actually live here in Hendersonville. We see each other on the weekends, but this has been the greatest chapter of my life in living in this community, and with the engagement of, there's just so much to do here. It's such a great community. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Mayor, move City Council approve the resolution by City of Hendersonville City Council approving interlocal agreement with the town of Laurel Park for the merger of the ABC systems as presented.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Not? Those in favor of the resolution for merger say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. All right. Very good. Thank you for all the 28 months and the many phone calls and things like that from Chuck Brady to spur things along.
We all know how Chuck is.
All right, next, South Main Street improvements. Mr. Detweiler.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last presentation of the evening. I need to start sending a gift basket to someone. Who would that be? Jill? All right, so you all saw a concept of this at your retreat a year ago. And basically what's driving it is the acoustic trails coming in about this time next year. And we have an opportunity to get folks, bicyclists and pedestrians safely from the acoustic trail to downtown. And so our Public Works Department and Tom Wooten and Brandon Mundy have been working hard to get bid. We have a low bid to pave this section of South Main Street. And along with that, we would like to go ahead and stripe it and incorporate what our consultant calls a cycle track. So let's see here. So what you're seeing on here is basically and we're down obviously at where the acoustic is coming in, and north is to the left, my left. And so basically you'll have a northbound bike lane next to a southbound bike lane. And I'll just go through, this is going to be very brief. I've got 3 slides total, just showing just some snippets of the design. I should note this is a draft plan. They are working, TPD is our consultant, who also had a concept of this with some renderings in Walk-Hendo. They were the same consultant that did Walk-Hendo. And just a couple of things that will be changing on the final plan. We are not going to include any no left turns or restricted left turn lanes. That may or may not happen with DOT's roundabout project, which will be happening just to the south of here. So, and we'll actually, part of their project will actually come up into this area, and we'll include as of now, a concrete median. And real quickly, the other thing that you've got on here, I just threw kind of in this inset photo in here, not very well, but it's basically just showing these markers, which is what these red dots represent along here. So basically, an area that will separate help to try to separate the bike lanes from the travel lanes, vehicular travel lanes. I will go to the next slide. So this is obviously This is going from, the end of that last sheet up to Caswell to Barnwell. And what you see on here is the consultant has come up with some ways to actually incorporate some additional parking along South Main Street. Poland parking, it's at the same angle as the other parking that we have on on Main Street along the Serpentine, and they've kept there are currently parallel spots on the east side of South Main. They've kept those on there, and actually, I believe in this block actually added a couple more. So I know parking's a hot topic. This plan actually shows approximately 7 more parking spaces. I'll get to the next sheet here in a second. We're going from, there's ballpark about 33 spaces in this, what would be a 3-block stretch. And there are, in the plan as shown, there are about 40. So net positive. A couple other thoughts on here or topics on here. So this is a striping plan. And this will, like I said, Tom and Brandon already bid the paving piece. We'll then be bidding the striping piece. There are a couple components that would be done in-house, including some pedestrian curb ramp, ADA curb ramp improvements at pretty much all of the intersections or most of the intersections. We're also going to add, it's not shown on here currently, but the consultant's working on a signal plan for us, but pedestrian signals throughout, the pedestrian/bike signals throughout this area to tell pedestrians that it's okay to cross and also give the go-ahead to bikers or bicyclists to go ahead and cross, which I don't know how many or how often you all walk down that way, but there currently are not, to my knowledge, I don't think there are any pedestrian signals down there now. So that will be a real improvement. Feel free to stop me if you have any specific questions. This is the last sheet. This is where we're hitting Allen. And one thing to note on here is that another piece of the striping of this project is it's kind of what you would call a road diet, where I should have thrown a slide in of what it looks like now, but basically it's like a 5-lane, like what all of Main Street looked like pre about 1976. So the road diet is basically getting it down to 1 lane in each direction, specifically in this block, and pushing the double yellow so it's lining up with the 2 lanes here, or the north and south at the Serpentine, where right now our Serpentine ends at Allen. So this will nicely line that up. So the Serpentine's not extending, but at least we'll get the lines or the lanes lined up. And this piece right here will allow bicyclists to kind of safely cross over here and get into this lane. And eventually we'll try to get some in our bike plan, which was adopted, I think, in 2019. It calls for shared use on Main Street. So, eventually we could get some sharrows painted in up there so folks can feel a little bit safer biking on Main Street. I had written down some notes, but I don't think I need to. I think I've covered pretty much everything that I've got on here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. The only other slide is the questions.
Any questions?
I think, sorry, go ahead.
The signals that
Uh-huh.
we were talking about adding, and there'll be audible signals as well.
They will not be audible signals. We could actually look at that. There is additional costs associated with that, but we can definitely look at it. I know it's something that came up during Walk Hendo. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay, can we look into that then? Okay.
I think this looks awesome. I have a question about, have we thought about where we're putting bike parking as far as bike racks? I mean, it would be nice to have some at the end of this to maybe just
Yeah.
encourage people to park their bike right there and walk the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think the plan is we're probably going to work with Blue Ridge Bicycle Club, likely, or get them on our own, and work with the TDA. One of the notes that I had written down that I meant to mention is we're working with several stakeholders on this. So Henderson County wanted to present it to you all first, but I've had discussions with the county engineer about this, and they're all on board because they realize right now the Acoustic is basically just going to end at South Main Street. So it's very important to get folks where they want to go and hopefully up into downtown so they can spend some money. And so we could, one thing that we've talked about is definitely trying to incorporate some bike racks in this area here. And we'd work with the TDA and the county to.
Okay, because I know lack of bike racks is something that I hear about from several people all along Main Street. So, but I was just thinking as far as like, until we can figure out what we're doing as far as striping or doing whatever on the Serpentine, it would be nice that it kind of signals people, like see a whole block of bike racks. Oh, I leave my bike here and then I'll walk the rest of the way.
Yes.
But we also probably should look at some other bike racks all down Main Street because it's about to be crazy.
We can definitely do that. And I know Joe Sanders is always looking to spend a little bit of money here and there. I don't know if did Joe donate the ones that we put in out here, or did we just buy them at Ops? You know? Right. Yeah. I know he's offered, so we can definitely.
We should take him up on that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I forgot to mention that you don't see on here, and one thing that so staff has already reached back out to TPD to get some things updated. They did not show handicap parking along here, so we are definitely adding that. At least 2 spaces with an access aisle, which would be the requirement to meet the access boards. It's called ProWag, the requirements. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Great.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant.
City managers report?
Just let you know that your surplus item report and your contingency and adjustment report is attached for your information.
You? Council members, anything you want to bring up, report? If not, we are adjourned.